A Vaughn named Sal Cooper was the most indispensable fighter of the Shadow Clan. His strength was considered absolute, invincible. But even the darkest shadows are not free from mistakes. The head of the clan accused him of betrayal. He had allegedly collaborated with his enemies for his own personal goals. In the name of the new head of the Cooper family, he was sentenced to immediate execution, without parole. Sal raised his head. His eyes blazed with anger. He activated the technique, placing the sword directly in front of the head's face. Cooper has dedicated his entire life to serving the clan. Will it end so ignominiously? But the warriors surrounded him. They struck stealthily, spears piercing his back. His insides burned, but he whispered an oath. If there really is an afterlife, he will personally blow the enemy to pieces. Even if he's already dead, death didn't stop him. He fulfilled his last will and killed the head of the clan. And then opened his eyes in the body of an infant. When he saw the strange shadow, he immediately prepared to attack. Cooper tried to realize where he was. Is this hell? No, this place is all too familiar. A woman came into the room. She demanded a wash-up. They would be coming for him soon. He recognized her, and he hated her. His gaze became cold and harsh. He got a slap for it. The impact knocked him off his feet. He fell, and, looking into the puddle, saw a new face for the first time. And he laughed, wickedly, snidely. He was alive again, in the body of a 3-year-old child. Sal Cooper was reborn. In a past life, he was the shadow of the Cooper family. He had been trained since childhood, through pain, fear, and blood. Murders, arson, espionage. The shadows took on all the dirty work of the clan. In return, they were promised wealth and fame. They thought that was enough. But as a bastard, he longed to break free from the underclass. He wanted to be something more than a scum. He practiced nonstop. He wanted to make up for everything he lacked by birth. Even when he was ignored, he himself begged to be sent to war with the other clans. He obeyed orders without pity. He slaughtered enemies, carved up towns. He won the war for the clan. He came back a hero, but instead of recognition, he was betrayed. Then the head revealed the secret. After becoming Shadow, they took an oath. He bound them with life through a spell. Their power flowed to him. Their pain healed him. And promises of rewards were lies for slaves. In a rage, Cooper swung his sword. One last blow. One last hope. But the head's magic was stronger. His blade failed to reach its target. His body was thrown away. He understood the essence of the blood spell. He used the reverse oath. He regained his power to take the artifact from the head, the Allen. Even so, he couldn't escape death. In this life, he would change everything. Suddenly, his stomach growled with hunger. It was like he hadn't eaten in forever. But seeing a mouse on the ground, he decided to eat it first to satisfy his hunger. In my past life, they were considered a real delicacy on the battlefield, much better than human flesh. Cooper looked at the mouse like a predator, but suddenly 2 people came into the room and called him trash. The guy told him that Master Allen wanted to see him, so he would go with them. Cooper remembered that in a past life, it was at this age that he was chosen to be a shadow, but the memories of the ceremony were completely gone, and believes that's when Allen poisoned him with his blood magic. But Cooper decided not to go with them, and with his sharp teeth he clung to the boy's arm. The guy was yelling that the kid was clawing at him like a dog. The other one was also holding on to his bitten arm and shouting to the other one to grab him. One of the boys swung his fist at the boy, but Cooper dodged the blow, and grabbing a hammer under his arm, he chopped off the arm of the guy who took a swing at him with one blow. The other guy was just shocked to learn that the boy knew how to handle a sword. And Cooper thought he had a chance for revenge. And in this life, he would do what he had started in the last. In his world, there was a shadow oath, and it is an ancient blood magic spell that allows the one using it to make the target of the spell his shadow at the cost of only a couple drops of blood. The shadow cannot harm its master, instead only taking damage instead. At the same time, the master of the shadow will take all the power and abilities that his shadow accumulates. And because of the overkill of this spell, the Empire issued a law over 100 years ago. destroy all books containing Shadow Oath spells, and also ban the use of this spell. During the initiation, Alan just slapped his ward saying he was useless trash, and told him how dare he call himself part of the Cooper family when even a wild dog can beat him. The ward grabbed his face and apologized to the head and begged for mercy. Afterward, Alan approached Cooper and asked how dare he oppose his master's men, and since Cooper had done so, he would sit and rot in the dungeon. The men understood the order and set out to carry it out. But suddenly a girl in heels came in and asked Alan to stop. She said that this child had been a street kid since he was a child, so it was normal for him to behave this way. The girl was called Hera, and she was the head of the family and Alan's mother. Hera said that now was not the time for punishment, however, because the initiation ceremony was more important. Hera walked over to her son and told him not to forget that she had told him what they were going to do today. Sal Cooper looked at them and didn't even know why his mother had chosen such a pathetic bastard to be his shadow. I'd have to kill him when I got the chance. Alan turned to his mother with a smile and replied that he understood. Hera said that then she would take the others out now and leave them alone with the future head of the family. Hera ordered the others to clear the room immediately and leave Master Alan alone. The others should cast a spell to hide the sound so that no one would interfere with the young master. Alan began the ceremony and, raising his drink above his head, said that from now on, they were all soldiers of their shadow army, and now let them worship their family. The students all shouted at once that they swore in the Shadow's name that their lives would be dedicated to the good of the family. Everything they have and everything they will have belongs to their family from now on. Cooper Sal looked at the drink in his hands, and drinking it said, "This is for the family." After drinking the glass, all the future Shadow Warriors passed out. Alan started laughing at them and said they were a bunch of chumps. They can't even tell the difference between poison and holy water. Alan picked up the knife and made a hole in his finger and began the magic. Dropping his drop of blood on the seal, said that all their strength, all their abilities would belong to him, and all the wounds he would bear, they would take upon themselves. Alan released the magic from his and combined it with his future servants, covering them with magic. Alan immediately began to feel the power filling him. And the Shadow Oath, it worked perfectly. He didn't even think it would be that easy, and he had to tell his mother the good news. Running out of the room, he headed to tell his mother. But as he left, his legs suddenly gave out. Collapsing to the ground, he thought, why aren't his feet listening? Could it be a side effect of the Shadow Oath? And his mother hadn't warned him about this. Alan became very frightened at this point and started yelling to his mother to come and save him. While Cooper Sal survived to say that Alan is really just a pathetic coward who can only hide behind his mother's skirt. It was a shame his mother had cast a soundproof spell on the place to keep him out of the way. So no matter how loud he screams, no one can hear him. Cooper Sal just looked at him like a victim and smiled his scary and intimidating smile. Alan asked the guy, how did he wake up? And how does he know about the oath? Sal asked in response, is he really scared? And can he believe that he actually knows a lot more? And if he told him that he was able to undo the oath, how would he react to that? Sal immediately swung his sword and decided to break the seal, completely shoving the sword into the ground. Alan immediately grabbed his body and began to feel his heart start to burst, and asked Sal what he was doing, and asked him to stop it. Sal smiled and remembered that in a past life, he had to die to get back all the things Alan had stolen from him. However, this time it was just an eye for an eye. Sal simply turned his sword and aimed his attack at Alan, finishing him off once and for all. But at the last moment, the spell broke and Alan's scream could be heard. The servant told Mistress that it was over. But Hera heard her son's voice and turned and shouted to Alan. She felt that something was wrong, but things turned out much better. The servant came to the lady and said that the young master was fine. He was only slightly exhausted after using such strong magic. As for canceling the soundproofing spell, one of the servants got distracted while casting the spell. He's already finished him off. Hera replied that she understood and ordered them to feed his body to the dogs. The servant looked at Alan and said he looked a little worried, though understandably so. He was too young for something like this. This invariably led to a great deal of psychological strain. Alan was thinking at that moment why he felt as if something had happened, but he couldn't remember what it was. Hera put her hand on her son's head and told him he shouldn't worry about the shadows. It's just the law of the jungle. He's bound to. But Alan took her hand away and asked, how could it be otherwise? He's the future head of the Cooper family. These lowlifes should give their lives for him. And he asked his mother, is it true what he says? Hera laughed and replied that he was indeed her son. He thinks rightly, and if he wanted anything, just let him tell his mother. She would do anything for him. Alan hugged his mother and told her she was the best. Cooper was standing outside the window at that moment, saying what a cute couple. It's just a shame that from now on, Alan Cooper is his shadow. In his past life, when he fought in the name of his family, he had discovered an entire folio of blood magic that just so happened to contain another shadow oath. And he gladly presented the folio to the head of the family. But even then, he was already under her influence. And it was a good thing he had studied the contents of the book beforehand and was able to combine the knowledge he had gained with the experience of returning power from his past life. Now it only takes one drop of blood to undo their vows. Their relationship with Alan is about to change dramatically. But even with all that, he's still 3 years old, and he's too weak to fight them. So now it's his time to get stronger. And now, his first step on the path to power will be Flaming Mountain. It's a veritable proving ground, created by the Cooper family to test shadows and find candidates strong enough for the role. Just like Prometheus, who stole fire for humans and was willing to accept his fate and suffer the claws of the eagle every day. The Cooper family has thrown very young children onto a fiery mountain to walk this thorny path, while eagles tear at their flesh. And even if one dies, one has no right to give up. And only when the first shadow reaches the top of the mountain will it receive the blessing of the eagle griffin. And then he'll get a body that can't be damaged, no matter how much he's tortured or beaten. The leader gathered all the boys and told them that they had only 3 days. They have only one goal. The methods they will use do not matter. All they have to do is get to the top of the mountain alive. And the coach for this challenge is Enos Walker. Enos told them to also remember that all those who surrendered would be executed in 3 days, grabbed a whistle and prayed for their great future, and gave the go-ahead for the crime of the ordeal. But suddenly Enos saw that the kid in this group was so confident and unflustered. The ward said it was Sal Cooper, the bastard that had pissed off the young lord yesterday. Enos was surprised it was him. Sal decided not to follow everyone else, and, turning aside, decided to walk up the mountain. The Minty started laughing at him and said the fool decided to climb the mountain with his bare hands. He'd surely crash, not even halfway up. The ward got curious and asked why not go to him right now to get the body right away. Enos replied that you can't. He had a better idea. Now is the time when he should show up. Suddenly, a strange monster flew over the mountain. The disciples were frightened and asked what it was. When they looked closely, they saw that it was an eagle. The eagle was so ruthless that it left no child behind as it climbed up the mountain on the trail. But Sal climbed to the top and looked around to see that the eagle had already killed everyone. But the eagle's gaze was so sharp that he noticed him at once. Enos took up his bow and said that Sal had pissed off Master Alan yesterday. So why don't they use the griffin's help to get rid of him? Taking aim, Enos said he wanted the young lord to have a little fun and fired an arrow straight at the griffin. The griffin dodged the arrow and asked who dared to do that. At that moment, Sal had just stepped in front of him. The griffin wasted no time and attacked Sal, screaming at him to die. But Sal was ready for it and could tell him the same thing. Sal leapt into the air to dodge the griffin's blow, and he remembered that he'd been through this once before, so he knew for sure. Climbing the griffin, he said there was only one way to get the griffin's blessing as soon as possible. So he raised his sword over the griffin and decided to tame it, and stuck his sword right through its head. He knew that the griffin was a stubborn monster with intelligence like a human. If he couldn't completely defeat it, he wouldn't be able to tame it. And that means he needs to give his best. Sal just started swinging his sword, and unleash an attack at him. The griffin was just at that moment saving up its energy to release it. The attack was unexpected, and the guy couldn't dodge and was thrown backwards. Sal couldn't stay on his feet, and he grabbed at the chips. But he was so stubborn that he grabbed the rock and held on. Sal, at this point, was just lucky he'd caught on. He was too reckless. He's 3 now, not 30. Even his sword skills from his past life wouldn't help him now. And with his current height and weight, Griffin will swat him before he can even get close to her. Fortunately, there's another way to defeat her. But we just have to get to the cave. The Griffin, seeing the guy still alive, decided to once again attack with the same attack as before. But Sal ran away to the side, but felt that it was powerful wind magic. And every time the Griffin releases streams of wind from her mouth, it increases her power by 1, up to 10. And once that happened, even if there were 100 of him here, it wouldn't be enough. And suddenly, in a moment, he remembered something. Sal realized that since he couldn't hide from her attacks, why not just use her attack to get to the cave? Sal climbed up the mountain and jumped with his sword straight into the Griffin. He realized to minimize the damage he received, he would immediately use the power of the Oath of Shadows to take the power from Alan. Sal used his powers while Alan fell off the bench and passed out. The servant was frightened and shouted that the master had fainted. After that, Sal was in the cave and it worked. And, running into the depths, he decided to hurry up a bit. Griffin ran after him and said the guy was a petty fool. And where was he going to run to? Suddenly, the Griffin stopped and was shocked. Sal at that moment grabbed his child and put his sword under her neck. The moth was begging its mother to save it. Sal said that few people know that the cub of a powerful creature like the Griffin was born with broken wings, unable to fly. The Griffin asked him what he was going to do with his baby. Sal answered him not to worry. He doesn't want to hurt him. On the contrary, he could help to heal his wings so that he could fly. But he has one condition. The underling downstairs told the boss that the kid's out of earshot now, and apparently he's already been eaten by the Griffin. Enos replied that it was time for them to go now and report back to Mr. Allen. They would surely be rewarded. At this point, Sal flew up to them, and upon hearing such words, offered to give them a ride up to him. Only he'll have to upset them and send them straight to hell. That's where they'll be waiting for him. Enos turned around and asked in surprise, "Is that Sal Cooper?" They were frightened, and running away, the ward shouted that it was impossible. But the Griffin didn't give them a chance to escape, and immediately ate them whole. He said he had fulfilled his part of the bargain. Now it was his turn. Sal replied that they should go then. Let Griffin take him to the dungeon at the northernmost part of this mountain range. The Griffin lifted the lad on himself and led him to the land of stones. He said that, as they had agreed, he would get the sword of Perseus, and then he would get him the blood of the jellyfish, which would heal any wounds. Sal replied that it was no problem, but he was only sorry that his goal wasn't the sword, and certainly not to help the Griffin. The Griffin raised its paw and opened a huge gate for him to pass through. Sal wanted to use this Griffin to destroy this dungeon. Opening the door, Sal saw before him a huge statue of a jellyfish man and his underlings. Sal said that in a past life, when Alan was 12, his mother sent an entire army of shadows to get the sword of Perseus for him. However, in this dungeon, there was a jellyfish statue that could turn all living things into stone. But many shadows fell in that battle to protect Alan from her. He was the only one left alive. However, the sword of Perseus can only belong to S-level geniuses, which means he couldn't have picked it up. But Alan was a very gifted young man. He took the sword and killed Medusa without a problem. As a result, Alan became the chosen sword, for which he was rewarded with countless resources, good connections, and many loyal servants. Which means in this life, even though he may not be able to get his hands on that weapon, he can't let him get his hands on the sword either. The Griffin asked, "Where's the sword? And where's the jellyfish blood? Why is there only a pile of rocks?" Suddenly behind them the doors closed. Griffin was wary and asked the boy if this was some kind of trick he was doing. But Sal gave a startled look and answered Griffin behind him. Griffin turned around and saw the statues running at them. The statues completely surrounded him and began to attack. Griffin asked, "When did those stupid rocks come alive?" But Sal started to run away and replied that he didn't know either. But the Griffin got angry and started his attacks, destroying them with his claws. But seeing the stones shine, the Griffin said they could change their structure, and the statues merged into one. Sal stood back and said that they were ruthless, cruel, and terrifying. The three statues have no facial features, and like the three mythical sisters of Greya, they share one eye and one tooth. They are like the jellyfish, daughters of the god of the sea, and so they can control the water, so it's time for them to run away. The statue let out a full stream of water and wanted to finish them off that way. The Griffin tried to fly away and asked what was the point of escaping. "We need to find the sword." Sal ran ahead and replied that he was already looking. The Griffin told him that if this continues, the ceiling will collapse. "They're going to die in here like this." Sal replies that he's looking for it, and there are some runes on the wall over there. Maybe they'll tell us the solution. But Sal rejoiced and thought it was wonderful. At this rate, the dungeon would collapse, burying the place under a pile of rocks. And now he will go through the secret passage that he discovered in his past life. But only now the problem is that he doesn't have enough power. Sal told Griffin that the runes say to get rid of the eye at the top, and then they would stop attacking. The Griffin raised its head and asked what other eye was up there. The Griffin simply flew up to the eye and removed it with its beak. The jellyfish immediately dried up and began to lose its strength. Griffin said they did turn into water. "That's just awesome." Sal replied that according to the runes, Perseus had learned of the jellyfish's whereabouts just after stealing Sister Greya's eye. So eyes are their weakness. The Griffin asked, "Where is the sword? Where is the blood that can heal his child? Would this eye be able to help them?" Sal gave him a surprised look and asked, "Sword?" And pointing his finger, he said there, "Let him have a look." The Griffin turned around, and behind him he saw a flaming sword that was embedded in the stone. Sal said that when Perseus cut off the jellyfish's head with this sword, red and green blood flowed from it. But the red one can poison any living thing, and the green one can heal any wound. But that's just a legend. This dungeon holds another secret. Griffin asked in surprise, "A secret?" Sal answered that yes. And when the sword of Perseus appears in the dungeon, the jellyfish will be resurrected too. But Medusa was unexpectedly expectant and attacked them from behind, releasing another stream of water. Sal thought this was the perfect moment for him to get out of here. After all, there was no way to stop the awakened jellyfish statue other than to cut off its head with the Perseus sword. But suddenly he felt the attack coming at him. He reacted in time and jumped into the water. Turning around, he was a little shocked at what he saw. He didn't understand where Griffin had gone. The Griffin at this moment hid behind a rock and came out and said that this thing looked even scarier than the previous ones. "Let him take it from here. He doesn't want to die." Sal was shocked because he didn't know that Griffin had a shrinking ability. But the jellyfish didn't wait and attacked the boy with its tentacles. Sal rejoiced that he had been through this dungeon before in a past life, so he would know what to do. But first, he needs to get the shield of the Knights of the Round Table. By using the reflection, he can avoid direct contact with the jellyfish's eyes. And to top it off, he's able to withstand the attack of her eyes. Medusa immediately attacked him, but Sal managed to grab his shield and take cover behind her. Sal said it was strong, but the flow of force was so strong that he couldn't stay on his feet and was thrown to the side. Sal fell to the ground and realized that things were bad. However, the shield wasn't enough. It destroyed the way out of the dungeon. But he can't physically take the Perseus sword. But how can he know for sure if he hasn't even tried? He must do it, or he'll die here. Jumping for his sword, he decided that even if he had to put his life on the line, he would do it. Grabbing the sword with his hand, he raised it above his head and was a little shocked. He had just picked it up, but suddenly a tentacle passed through his chest, which scrambled across to the other side. Sal just held the sword in his hands and didn't understand how he was able to lift the sword. After all, he wasn't gifted from birth. He remembered the moment when Alan had asked him how dare he even think of touching that sword with his D level. And now Sal realizes that something's gone wrong. And suddenly he remembers, and that's what this is all about. His fencing talent belongs to him now. Sal used his swordsmanship talent and began to glow with red flames. The Griffin watched from behind the rock and asked what happened, and saw that this kid had made it out of her grip in one piece. He'd just become a monster. Sal didn't waste any time and swung his sword a couple times. After a few blows, he was able to kill the jellyfish, leaving his mark on its head. But he realized that in his past life, his swordsmanship level was S. But Alan's mother used some kind of magic to kidnap him and give him to her son. After that, she erased his memories, so that's what the truth is. Sal wiped the sweat from his face after the victory and cheered. And Griffin wondered what was wrong with this guy. But Sal was starting to get more and more interesting. Alan, his whole family, just let them wait for him. But Griffin decided that it didn't matter anymore. And while the kid was going crazy, it was better to get out of here soon. Suddenly, Sal told Griffin to come over to him. Griffin asked what was wrong. Why did he call him over? But Griffin thought he was a level S monster. And why was he even afraid of him? Sal asked him if his head was strong. The Griffin didn't understand at first and asked what. And then he took his old form and flew out of the pile of stones. Griffin realized that this guy was an asshole, and he was using him to destroy the dungeon from the beginning. But since he agreed to heal his cub, he would forgive him for that. But they did not know that they had left a trail behind them. At this time, Medusa slowly seeped through the rocks and let her flow into the seal that is deep within the mountain. The Griffin turned to the guy and said he was blessing him and gives him an indestructible body, and no matter how many times he is hit, he will remain unharmed. Sal had gotten the prize and was starting to feel a lot more resilient, and small wounds were healing on their own. And it's a good thing he's minimizing the amount of damage that will be passed on to Alan. That way, his mom won't suspect anything soon enough. Plus, you have to hide the fact that he has S-level talent. You don't want to attract too much attention. Sal pulled out a bottle and told the Griffin to let his cub drink this, and his wings would heal. The Griffin took the bottle and poured it directly into the baby's mouth. The baby felt the power inside and immediately took off. The Griffin rejoiced and shouted to the baby that he could finally fly. Sal said he was only learning how to fly. If he doesn't find a master before he comes of age, he will remain just a stupid bird. The Griffin asked the boy what he meant. Sal replied that it was nothing like that. I just wanted to warn him. After all, she only became so strong after she found her master, didn't she? The Griffin realized that it was true. If his master didn't feed him humans, he wouldn't be able to develop his soul and become stronger. But the master died over 100 years ago. Where can we find someone as strong as him, who can kill others without blinking an eye? Suddenly, he remembered the boy. He turned to him and said that he was asking him to take his cub as his magical pet. And he saw that Sal, at such a young age, was much stronger and smarter than the rest of his peers. Maybe in the future, he could surpass even Brad. And then Sal was glad, for he was caught. He told the Griffin he'd take him, but only if they made a deal with him. Griffin asked with surprise, a deal? Sal replied that he wanted to know all about Brad Cooper, and also where lies their precious key that opens the door to Brad's spiritual sword. Hera at this time asked the doctor what it meant that he couldn't figure out why. After all, Alan had passed out twice in the middle of nowhere. It couldn't just happen like that, could it? And how long could it go on for? The ward answered her not to worry. After all, thanks to the Oath of the Shadows, the young lord would recover quickly. After all, any damage is taken by the little shadows instead of him. Hera realized that it was all true, and there's just something weird going on, and she thinks Alan became like this just after the shadow ceremony. Someone is clearly behind this. The ward turned to the lady and said that something unexpected had happened. It needed her attention. Sal Cooper took first place in the test exam, as they had expected. However, Sal Cooper used the Griffin to kill Walker's uncle and his nephew, and afterward tamed its cub. Hera was frightened and asked where he was. The ward replied that he was right outside the door right now. He's going to call him right now. Sal came into the room immediately afterward and asked Hera if she wanted anything. Hera asked him why he had killed Walker. Sal looked at her and replied that he did it for the good of their family. It's kind of pathetic that a shadow trainer was killed by a mere 3-year-old. Their Cooper family doesn't need that kind of trash. And doesn't the missus agree with him now? And suddenly, Hera saw the exact same expression on his face. Anger, disgust, but no fear. He definitely had some trump card up his sleeve. Hera told Doug to give Sal a reward and send him to the healing springs of Eden. Salu bowed and said he was grateful to her, and he thought the source of Eden would be just right for him. Leaving, Hera told Doug to pick up the pace of learning magic deprivation. They should take Sal's talent away and give it to his son before the inheritance ceremony for Brad's sword begins. She realized that if Alan's secret about his lack of innate talent for fencing was revealed, he could be disinherited. And for now, she'll let him go and see how far his insolence can go. Salu ran straight to the springs of Eden. But he remembered that before parting, Griffin had said that before he died, Master Brad had used a forbidden magical technique to seal his soul at the bottom of the Eden Springs. And the point of this is to pass on all of his knowledge and swordsmanship experience accumulated over a lifetime to an heir with S-level talent. This is so that the Cooper family's status in the Empire will not waver even after his death. And when he is at the bottom, just let him follow the water current. It will lead him to an underwater cave where he will find the key, and that will lead him to his master. But something is going on in Eden Springs because of his long separation from his master. He doesn't know what it is. The only thing he can tell him is that the master has blood magic. It's going to be hard to pull off. Sal said blood magic sounds weird, and it looks like getting the heirloom sword before Alan does is going to be difficult. Did the guy who saw him say he was the same Sal Cooper who qualified for the qualifying exam and took first place? The second student replied that this was correct. He was also able to tame a baby griffin. But suddenly Lucian Sia approached the guy. Reno's little acolyte asked, "What's so cool about this?" "He's just the son of a pathetic girl of easy virtue." The son of the Cooper family stable boy, Reno Ors, came up to Sal and said congratulations. Turns out he doesn't just look like a skinny monkey, he moves like one. Sal was the first to climb the slide. Sia couldn't help himself and started laughing very loudly and saying that he was really a monkey. Sal remembered that in his previous life, these two men had been his subordinates. But in the end, it turned out that Alan had sent them to him on purpose. They fabricated all the charges against him and then made him look like a traitor to the motherland. And since they can always rely on Alan for support, they got used to the power pretty quickly. Ors immediately raised his fist at him, asking why he doesn't answer. After all, he wants to see if his indestructible body will help him. Striking with his fist, Sal bitched to the last and stopped at the very last moment. Sal twisted his arm and said they would look at it now. Ors immediately started screaming in pain. Sia saw his friend being hurt, immediately pulled out a knife and shouted that the guy was faithfully seeking death. But Sia swung so hard he didn't see where he was hitting, and Sia just put Ors in front of him, and the knife pierced the guy's chest. Sal said he apologized. He accidentally covered himself with this guy like a shield. But they were very lucky. This water can heal any wound. Let them go and bathe for a while. After all, they would still be useful to him for practicing together. And in this life, he would make them obey him without question. Ors fell to the bottom of the water, and Sal could smell the odor of black magic. How such evil and forbidden magic, on the level of blood magic, could appear in springs that healed any wounds. And it looks like that's what the Griffin called something strange. And it's best not to go down into that water, which means we have to find another way to get to the bottom of the spring without touching the water. Suddenly a warrior began to pass near him, who was dragging a girl by the hair, and she was screaming and begging for help. Sal immediately recognized that voice. The warrior said she can't even serve tea properly, and she thinks she deserves a good beating. The girl apologizes and replies that she didn't mean to, and asks him to let her go. Sal looked over and realized it was Adelia. The warrior had raised her hand at her and was saying that she dared to object yet. But immediately he heard a voice saying that he was just going to be beaten. Sal just didn't give him a chance, cutting him in two. The boys were very frightened and shouted that a man had been killed and let them report to the guards. Sal asked her if she was okay. At that time, Adelia saw him as a savior. Sal thought she was a princess, and seeing her face, thought he had scared her. Sal said he apologized for scaring him. Adelia replied that it hadn't even happened. Adelia thanked him for saving the day, and after introducing herself to him, she asked him what his name was. He thought back to an old memory where Adelia had told him he'd been hurt again. Sal realized that she had been his best friend in his past life. She has an incredible magical talent that is many times greater than the powers of her peers. During the battle, she would always tell him not to worry, because she would help him. Adelia asked the guy, "Isn't he Mr. Cooper?" But either way, she was grateful to him for saving her. Sal could see that even at her age of 5, Adelia was incredibly sweet. He told her no problem, because any gentleman would do the same, and let her just call him Sal. However, she doesn't know how one could empty the spring, or get to the bottom of it without touching the water. He realized that he shouldn't forget his mission. Since he had found Adelia, everything would work out. Adelia asked him, did he notice it too? Sal gave a surprised look and asked what. Adelia answered him that there was some strange magic in that spring, which at the same time healed any wounds. But once she touches him, nothing else but this water can heal his body anymore. Sal immediately realized that this was another way for the Cooper family to control their shadows, forcing them to seek treatment. Adelia said that, however, she wanted to thank him for her rescue. He knows one way to get to the bottom without touching the water. Adelia used her powers on him and said she called it duck magic. Sal was surprised and asked, "Duck magic?" The girl replied that it is because it makes people like ducks. Even though they may be at the bottom of a body of water, their feathers will never get wet on the inside. Sal realized it was isolation mania. It turned out that even as a child, Adelia had a habit of giving spells such strange names. The Cooper's warriors came in and said, "Here they come." And it was that guy who killed a man. Adelia got scared and said they were coming for them. Sal grabbed her hand and told her they had to get out quick, and together they went into the water. Sal saw that the underwater current leads right to the bottom of the spring. That must be where they are going. Adelia told the kid they can't go in there. They got to get out of here, but they couldn't handle the current and they were swept to the bottom. Once in the other world, Adelia tried to wake Sal up and slowly slapped his face to bring him to his senses. Sal opened his eyes and saw a girl in front of him. He looked around and realized it was here. Adelia asked what it was. Sal replied that it was a precious key. It could open the door leading to the spiritual sword. The girl said there is no door here, so how do they use this key? Maybe the door needs to be summoned? Sal replied that although he didn't know what a spirit sword was, they could try. Adelia took the key in her hands and, turning to her, asked that he hear her voice. Let him find his master and open the door that would lead to him. But Sal suddenly sensed something and said it was bad. He turned around and saw that the plants had turned into monsters and were attacking them. But Sal reacted in time and grabbed Adelia and started running, and jumped out the other way where the plants couldn't reach. Sal opened his eyes and saw that the portal had appeared. But when he looked at Adelia, he saw that she was unconscious. Sal moved her to the side and decided there was nothing to be done, and now he would have to leave her here for a while. He put his hand on her head and decided to cast the invisibility magic she had taught him in his previous life. He put his hand on her head and decided to cast the invisibility magic she'd taught him in his previous life. After all, he has a tough battle ahead of him. It is, after all, a test to obtain the sword of Brad himself. Sal headed towards the portal without fear and stepped through it. After all, he had a tough battle ahead of him. This was, after all, a test to obtain the sword of Brad himself. Entering the portal, he came out the other side and got in place of the corpses that had been lying there for centuries. But the monster that inhabited the place saw the guy and greeted him. This life told the story of Eden Springs, for it was not just a place to rest and heal wounds, but also a place where the Cooper family kept their concubines. But Sal was only now learning what had really happened to them. But they had become food for the sword. Suddenly, the monster suddenly appeared in front of him and said that it smelled like an S-level talent. Sal stepped back sharply and was surprised at how he knew about this. The monster asked, "Is he really Alan Cooper? That child gifted with S level from birth." But he didn't look like a spoiled brat either. He immediately jumped on him and said that the boy was just a bastard who had encroached on the inheritance. But Sal used his new sword and stopped his attack. The monster said he wouldn't give it to him for nothing. He had to pass a test first. Sal told him not to worry. He's here just to kill him. The monster raised his sword and said that nothing less was expected of his offspring. The monster threw his punch and said it was just arrogant. Sal couldn't handle the force and was thrown aside. The monster told the guy he was still too weak, but he saw that he had the gift of the griffin, and he didn't expect that brainless bird to recognize him. And it had been a long time since he'd seen a griffin. Sal knew that Brad had sacrificed most of his power to seal his soul in his own sword, and he must have it. But with his current strength, he still had a chance. Sal immediately stood up and released his griffin power. With Griffin's help, he placed a huge cross behind the monster. The monster turned around and realized it was a blood magic banning technique. Sal said that they had been dead for a long time and didn't know that in the last 100 years, the Empire had invented several secret techniques to combat blood magic. And now, he would rip out his heart and get his inheritance. Sal ran at him with his sword, but the monster asked him not to. At the last moment of his attack, the monster suddenly broke free and stepped aside, saying he was scared. Sal was in shock and didn't understand how he was able to free himself. The monster shouted that he was laughing, and it had been a long time since he had played with such a small mouse. However, the game is over. He doesn't want to have any more fun. He has strength and talent, but not enough to earn the right to wield his sword. The monster just wouldn't play with him and released his spirits. Sal immediately realized that it could use blood to create spirits, and the power is immense. But suddenly one of the spirits attacked him from behind and wounded the guy's back. Sal realized that they had started attacking too often. Sal applied his holy sword defense technique. He decided to use Perseus' sword to defend himself against his magic. The monster just touched his finger and said it was useless, and easily shattered his defenses. Beyond that, the monster grabbed the guy by the throat and was saying that he should know that after a cat plays with a mouse, it will eventually eat it, right? Sal immediately felt the blood and power all go away. The monster said his aura was so warm and familiar. One of his concubines had the same. Maybe it was his mother? When Sal heard about his mother, he immediately became enraged. The monster said it was great. He'd get to taste her baby. Sal immediately remembered his mother talking and singing her lullabies to him before bedtime. And she told him that his mother was always there for him and would pet him all night. The next day, Sal was already running to his mother's house and carrying flowers. But without looking under his feet, he fell to the ground with his face. But on that day, his mother apologized to him and said she had to leave. The mother at this point didn't even turn around for one last look at her son and just walked away. After that, all the guys started beating him up and saying his mom didn't want him. I mean, nobody wants scum. And after that, they just think he's a miserable kid. Sal immediately grabbed his head and screamed that his mother couldn't have left him, and now he knows who killed her. Sal felt a quick burst of strength, and breaking off the fight, said that he was the one who killed his mother, and immediately stuck his sword right into the monster's chest. The monster didn't realize what had happened right away. Then he felt a pain in his chest and a tear in his meridian. The monster realized it was blood-sucking, and how easily the boy is able to use his magic. But he would soon burn all his blood. Would he really kill him? The monster grabbed his chest and said that he'd spent too much energy on the blood spirits. He should eat a couple more women to replenish his strength. The monster immediately ran to his women's flesh and began to eat. Sal asked, "Does it taste good?" Sal jumped at him with his sword and said he asked, "Was his mother tasty?" As he thrust his sword into the monster's body, he saw his mother in front of him. He was a little confused. But Sal didn't stop that this time, and stuck his sword once more into the monster's head. The monster fell to the ground and said that the kid was completely insane, and you have to back off and find a couple more concubines or he'll die. But Sal didn't stop there and stuck his sword into it once more. The monster asked him not to kill him. He could merge with his sword, become a spiritual weapon, give him more power. But Sal answered him that he didn't deserve it. The monster dissolved and took the form of blood. The story stated that the legacy of swordsmanship, once absorbed, would fuse with his body forever. Sal suddenly remembered that he hadn't seen his mother since he was born. Just a crazy fantasy and a pathetic monster. But when he looked at the blood, he saw his mother's face that said, no, he's not a monster. And his mother would always be there for him. Suddenly Adelia came in and asked if he was all right. And why is he covered in blood? Is he hurt? She'll fix him right away. Adelia touched him and immediately applied his healing technique. But Sal remembered that in his past life, Adelia had been his concubine. Suddenly, he couldn't stand it anymore and hugged her. Adelia didn't realize what had happened and felt awkward. And now Sal promised himself that in this life, he would never let anyone touch her. After the disappearance of the demon that was the spirit of Brad's sword, a real divorce began in the Cooper family. All the guardians of the sources of Eden were sentenced to death. And the servants, who had seen Sal's rage, no longer dared to behave so rudely to Adelia. And according to rumors, it was Sal Cooper who stole the spirit's sword from the springs. However, without having enough evidence, Alan's mother could only continue her pursuit. An imprisonment blood draws poisoning, but Sal remained unharmed. For years later, in the training ground of House Cooper, Alan fought his servants. The servant fell to the ground and begged only for mercy. Alan asked, did he really want to overpower him, being so weak? The servant replied, that of course not. He is simply marvelous. At this moment, Hugh Isaac, the head of the Isaac family, Hugh Isaac said that he had heard that young Master Alan was born with S-level talent. Today, he was convinced of it. The head of the Cooper family, Duke Leon, was also by his side and thanked him. Suddenly, someone in the crowd told everyone to look back. The warriors immediately saw Sal, and they all jumped on him. But Sal stood still and said it was kind of noisy, and used a shadow blade, and easily got all the servants out of his way. Hugh watched this kid from home and recognized the technique. Usually kids his age were still at the level of Iron Sword Adept, and this kid has clearly already reached the level of a Silver Sword Protector. It's simply unbelievable. Alan got angry and thought he was a jerk and asked how dare he steal his triumph. Alan pointed his sword at him and said he was challenging him to a fight. Sal was surprised and didn't understand what he was going to do. Sal realized that if Alan had gotten his talent, as he had in his previous life, his power would be now. Sal couldn't refuse him and agreed. And it's a great chance for him to find out his current strength. Alan got excited too and told the guy to attack. And this was a great chance for him to finish him off. People were already shouting for the Master to defeat him. And Master Alan will show him the true art of swordsmanship. Sal attacked him first, and Alan fought back. But he felt he could overpower him. Sal turned to the Lord and told him to use his power already. Would not Mother Nature herself favor him? Alan was surprised and asked what the jerk was talking about. Sal immediately raised his sword, and the gentleman stepped back. Alan became angry and thought that it was impossible. After all, his mother had told him that with his current strength, no one could match him in battle. Sal saw that the Lord was weak, and even the magical aura from his sword is simply negligible. Obviously, it's only an artificial enhancement. He doesn't have any talent for swordsmanship. Sal dodged his attack and jumped out, saying for the Lord to let him show him what a real punch is. Alan turned around and saw the sword in front of his face. But Sal just didn't feel sorry for him and stuck the sword into his head. The warriors were frightened and all ran up to the Lord. Alan at that moment was holding his face and screaming his eyes out in pain. Hugh started laughing at this point and said that he must have been wrong. Maybe those servants who had just lost to the Master were just pretending? Leon wouldn't let him talk like that and told him not to forget himself. Hugh apologized and replied that after all, Mr. Allen was engaged to his younger sister, and he just doesn't want her to marry a lowlife. Leon told him that he worries too much. If it wasn't for a marriage of convenience, there's no telling if his sister would have married anyone. Hugh got angry and asked what he had just said, and turned around and said he had to go. and let him not forget that the joint action between their families would happen in 10 days. Leon was also angry and thought that Alan was just a lowlife. He asked the servant what the shadow's name was. The servant replied that his name was Sal, the son of one of his concubines. Leon was surprised that it was his son. No wonder why he was so good with the sword. Leon thought for a moment and told the servant to bring him to the study. The servant replied that everything would be done. Sal headed over to the Lord after the battle and asked him, did he want something? Leon used his eye at this moment and didn't see any innate talent in him. Is he really hiding his power to compete for the right to become the heir? But he definitely has a motive. And the good thing is, he's just a boy. He'll be easy to expose. Leon said that in 10 days, he would be leading a 10 shadow squad, that he and the men from Isaac's family would travel to the lost Crystal City to retrieve dragon eggs for their families. And this is the sword that activates the teleportation formation in the Crystal City. Sal realized, to get the dragon eggs, they will definitely confront the dragon and piss him off. And he guesses it's not an easy mission. Leon is up to something. However, how could he pass up such an opportunity to get a dragon egg? Sal told the Lord that he understood. But however, he had a request for him. Leon was surprised and thought, what kind of request? The next day, Sal was out on the road. In that amount of time, the griffin was able to grow to a huge size. Adelia asked him if he hadn't told the head of the family that he would accompany them as a maid. She didn't feel comfortable sitting like this the whole way. Sal replied that she shouldn't sweat it, and asked the guys, no one minds, right? The guys replied in a shaky voice that yes. Upon arriving at the site, the guys asked, is this the Crystal City? Where are the crystals? And the dragon's nest? Sal replied that he didn't know himself. Suddenly a girl came up to them and said that she didn't expect that the Cooper family's elite unit didn't even know anything about this town. The girl turned out to be the younger sister of the head of the Isaac house and was Alan's fiancée. She said that hearing them say that made her laugh. Sal turned to her and asked her when she called her dumb. Gloria held out her hand and said he was the same Sal Cooper. This is their first meeting, and he could just call her Gloria. Sal turned around and told Adelia to keep her and Meow here. He would be back soon. Gloria got mad at him and yelled that he didn't even look at her. But Sal went on with the mission. Gloria followed him and said she was actually talking to him. Sal turned around and answered her that he was afraid that if they didn't activate the portal before sunset, their entire trip would be in vain. But he remembered that moment when they knew each other, and Gloria kept asking him to go to practice with her, and realized that he had met that noisy woman again. But it didn't matter. One could only hope that this foolish bird would be up to the task. Suddenly someone in the group said that the altar was glowing, but he was told that this altar was a teleportation formation. Sal used his sword and opened the portal. The group marveled and said this is what the Crystal City looks like. And it is beautiful, and somewhere here lies the legendary dragon egg. Suddenly, Isaac's family group told them to finish off the Cooper family's people. Then the egg would belong to them. Sal turned around and realized that this was really bad, and the guy who pulled out the portal sword and hoped that when they returned, the chapter would definitely reward him. Sal turned around and started yelling to his men to get out of here faster. But things didn't go according to his plan. The boy and the others ended up inside the portal, and someone was telling the Guardians of Light and the Guardians of the Crystal City to attack the boys. The guy was in shock and yelled to his mother asking for help. Gloria immediately went on the attack and said they were just pathetic scum. Gloria used the cut of the spikes against her enemies. Guy was shocked to see my lady's face. Gloria asked him who gave him permission to be an amateur. The boy replied that it was all for the good of their home. But Gloria said she thought he was only doing it for himself. The guy immediately warned my lady that she was being attacked from behind. But Gloria wouldn't have had time to react, and Sal made a strong attack and saved her life from perishing. While Sal was surrounded by several enemies at once, he raised his sword and turned to the shadows and said he was ordering them to prepare for battle. The shadows heard his order and replied that it was accepted. Immediately, they all stuck their swords under the ground and let their magic in. The magic was so unexpected that it seeped through the portal to Sal's aid, and the enemies were enfolded by magical shadow hands. Sal decided he wished to see which was better, their power of light or his shadow. The Isaac family warriors said that they captured the guards so easily. This is the Cooper family style, a combination of swordsmanship and magic. And this Sal is only a child, but he has such power. Gloria looked at him with admiration and thought he was very good. Sal took out all the enemies with one blow, but the shadows helped him with that as well. Grabbing the gift saw that he managed to get the power of the crystal core. And now, he had gone from the level of a silver blade guardian to a golden sword master. But looking in front of him, he saw a door, and in that was a key shaped like the crystal he had gotten. Putting it back in its place, everything began to shake. The shadow boys were surprised and asked, "Is this an earthquake?" Sal replied that no, and it was the altar that was falling. You must go to it immediately, for the secret passage to the dragon's lair is open. When they went down into the dungeon, Sal said that this was the dragon's lair. The whole place was lined with dragon eggs. The guy from Shadow's group asked. Now they wouldn't have to do anything, would they? But the warrior immediately told him to put them back down quickly. Sal thought they were idiots. After all, they were in such a hurry to become dinner for the dragon. One of the guys saw someone stop above them and asked, "What is it? Could it be a demonic dragon?" "It's awake." Gloria told them not to run away, but to fight. Sal answered her that when he was done, let her take the dragon egg with her. But it turned out to be more complicated than that, and suddenly a trap went off. The guy who went to the shelter to get the egg asked, "What's going on?" Gloria asked Gray what he was doing, but he remembered Leon telling him to use the other shadows as bait for the dragon, and once he got the egg, have him get out of there and destroy the formation. After all, he'll do it to make sure all of the Isaac family's henchmen can't escape. As for Sal, he can stand up for himself. Gray replied that he apologized to his friends, but only one family in the entire empire has the right to own a dragon egg, and that's the Cooper family. Let them sacrifice themselves for the good of the family while he delivered that egg to them. The boys shouted at him and asked him to come back now. Gloria said how cruel the head of their family is to do this to not only them, but his own people. Sal ran to fight and said it was expected. Gloria answered him, and if it was, why did he come to certain death? Sal said she thinks too much, because he can't die here. Sal tried to attack the dragon, and even as he got closer, he threw a punch that the dragon even felt. But after that, the dragon just went nuts and immediately started burning around. Sal couldn't even hold on, and he fell under the ground. And Gloria saw it and ran to help. But the dragon saw this and attacked again, this time aiming his attack directly at the girl. But Gloria used the defense of the Moonblade. Gloria asked the guy, what's he even talking about? And is he sure he's all right? Sal stood up and replied that it was all right. Let her hold him back, and he would make a hard attack. And he was now asking her to do it because she was the only one who could handle it. Gloria replied that she understood. Gloria realized that she was also a gifted swordsman. Can't let this kid underestimate him. Gloria made her move and distracted the dragon a bit. Then she shouted to Sal that now was the time. Let him attack. But turning around, she asked him what was he standing there for? Was he going to do anything or not? Gloria saw that he was unresponsive and thought that he had been hit so hard that he couldn't attack. And at this rate, they're all going to die in here. So there's only one way out. Gloria immediately used her devastating blade dance and unleashed a stream of attacks from different directions. The dragon was badly injured and fell to the ground. The guys came up to the dragon and asked, did it work? And starting to beat him, shouted for him to feel the power. Gloria was happy too and said that she had succeeded. But suddenly the dragon opened its eyes and immediately began to attack. The boys were scared and ran away shouting that it was bad. The dragon is furious. Tell them to find shelter immediately. Gloria asked, how so? Sal immediately drew his sword from his chest at this moment and decided to use the third sword heritage technique, Blood Shadow Attack. The third technique simply surrounded the dragon from different sides and slowly devoured it with spirits. Sal raised his sword and used the blood shadow attack, and ordered his men to gather a bit. The guys were surprised and said that Sal had just turned dragon blood into his clones. But that wasn't all. Didn't he notice what his sacred sword had turned into? A warrior from the Isaac family asked if this was real blood magic. Gloria replied that it was, but it was forbidden. Only the head of the Cooper family was authorized to use it on the battlefield. Gloria, however, heard that Brad Cooper's spirit had disappeared. Could this be Sal's doing? Gloria got angry and started to ask him, was he not doing anything on purpose? Was he just waiting to beat the dragon's blood out of him? She was yelling at him that he was a little bastard, and how dare he take advantage of her. Sal ran to attack and asked, so what of it? Sal remembered that in his past life, he had been used any way he wanted, like he was scum. But now, in this life, he will not sit back and meekly wait for his death. Sal easily chopped off the dragon's head after that attack. Gloria ran up to him and said that was pretty good. But suddenly Sal raised his sword at her and told her to stay back. But he was in so much pain that his face creased. Gloria turned to him. But at that moment Sal saw the monster's face asking him, did he think he could live peacefully after killing him? The monster was telling the guy that he wouldn't become like him. He would need to consume a lot of his victim's blood and flesh for. Let him start doing it. There's his prey in front of him, and now he can enjoy it to the fullest. Sal couldn't fight back and attack the guys yelling that he needed more blood. The guys started running away and yelling that it was bad. He used blood magic too much and became a demon. But then Adelia came in and stood in front of him and told him not to do it. Sal came to his senses and fell to his knees in front of her. Adelia entered his subconscious and tried to wake him up so he could resist the blood magic. After his rescue, Adelia stood by his side and begged him to wake up. Sal came to and was surprised to see her beside him. Adelia was glad and said he was finally awake, and she used a purification spell. It stopped the transformation into a demon, and they were all able to get out of there. Adelia brought him a present and told him it was the last whole egg, and the kidnapper was caught. And she hadn't told Isaac's family members about him, and that red-haired girl had already left. So he didn't have to worry. They did their job. Sal rejoiced and thanked her for such an act. After all, now he could be calm. He realized that originally, he had a plan to save Adelia from the Cooper family. He wanted Meow to see her away from here, so he could fake her death, call it all an accident. Sal immediately attacked Meow and shouted that she was a stupid bird, and that he couldn't even do the simplest of tasks. If that's the case, then let him die. Meow replied that he had nothing to do with it at all. She was very worried about him and decided to go downstairs no matter what. Sal was surprised and asked him if he dared to cross him. But Adelia stood up for him and suggested that they discuss it. Don't overreact. But suddenly the Shadow Boys turned to him. But without wasting time, they immediately pounced upon him with their swords. Sal saw them and said they finally showed their true colors. Then let them try to take his egg away from him. But after a moment, Sal looked at them with surprised eyes. After all, they had pounced on the traitor and finished him off. Falling on his knee, Hugh told Mr. Cooper that he asked him to forgive his former rudeness. If it had not been for him, they would have died in the forgotten ruins, abandoned even by their family. And from now on, they will no longer take orders from the family. They will all follow him until death. The others also kneeled down and said they would follow him until death. And even after that, Sal tried to make a speech, but Adelia interrupted him and told him to look at the dragon egg. The egg suddenly began to crack, and suddenly a dragon cub hatched out of it, which was already flying and cranky. The guys were shocked and said, "Demonic dragon." It had been born. Sal reached out to him and said that the dragon would only agree to obey the strongest. So does he want to be with him? The dragon flew up to him, and after giving him permission to pet him, he replied that he wanted to. Hugh rejoiced and said that even the dragon was with them. And congratulations to the master on taming the dragon. Sal Cooper's rebel troop was born today. At this time in the kingdom, Alan asked his mother when they would go horseback riding already. Hera replied that as soon as his father was done with his work. Leon got angry and asked, What's the point of this? All he's doing is having fun. He's no better than that bastard. And did they know that a boy named Sal was not only able to kill a dragon, but also tamed her cub? Hera said it wasn't Alan's fault. Why is he mad at him? If he had been there instead of Sal, he would have done just as well. She turned around and told him to forget it, because she had nothing to talk to him about. And she and Alan were going for a drive together. Alan got excited and shouted to the servants to bring him his whip faster. Hera asked Doug how the research on magic deprivation was going. Doug answered her not to worry. They had successfully completed this research. All that remained was to find an S-level subject to test the spell's performance. Why what? Use it on Sal Cooper. Hera got excited and said that wasn't bad. This time they would get rid of him for good. 5 years later, Adelia was telling the guy that he would be completely cleansed afterward. He would be completely protected from turning into a demon and would be able to use his techniques without any problems. Sal turned around and thanked her for that. Adelia replied that she shouldn't. She should be the one thanking him for the new staff. She likes it very much. But suddenly Sal turned his head to the side and, seeing a shadow, exploded open the window and said someone is coming. But he saw that the man had already fled. But judging by the figure, it was the butler. Suddenly the boys came in and told him that they had come to report on his assignment. Or said they had been following the Cooper family butler and found out that he had gathered a group of dark mages to perform some kind of ritual in 3 days. Hugh also said he was saying something like, they finally found another person with S-level talent, and she has incredible magical abilities. Sal realized that they were really going to start a ritual of magic deprivation. But why did they need another target? Instead of pursuing him, they decided to look for another S-level talent. And who is this target with incredible magical powers? And looking at Adelia, he decided it was her. 3 days later, Adelia was working and said the warehouse was a mess again and decided to clean the place up with magic. But Doug at this point slowly crept up behind her and, grabbing her, decided to sedate her with alcohol. Adelia felt at once that she was losing consciousness. But Doug had already gathered all the men and was reading the technique. They asked her to grant them power over her strength, the power that follows a man like a shadow. Let her give them power over her power. Doug realized that when her blood fused with the magical formation, all of her power would become his. Doug pulled out his knife and tried to kill her during the ceremony. But as he stabbed her, he saw her disappear and asked, "What happened?" Adelia appeared behind him and said it was only a simple illusion. Doug was shocked and turned around and immediately realized it was Adelia. The girl had told him not to underestimate her. She didn't waste any time and immediately used the starlight chains against him. By chaining him up, Doug was saying that this little wench was far more cunning than he thought. Doug turned to the mages and asked what they were standing there for. Have them help him immediately. Adelia immediately remembered that Sal had said to just close your eyes afterward, cover your ears, and sit quietly. But Doug saw a shadow above him and asked what was going on, and that roar. The mages started screaming in fright that they were being attacked by a dragon. And the griffin is also with him. One of them asked, "How is this possible? Why are two monsters attacking together?" The griffin immediately grabbed several enemies in front of him and slowly bit off their heads. And the dragon just let out a flame from its mouth and completely incinerated all the people in front of it. Doug couldn't believe that the dragon and the griffin had attacked them. Sal came up and said that he dared to touch Adelia, and apparently it was time for him to die. Doug turned around and saw Sal Cooper walking up to him. Sal presented a sword to his face and asked why he wanted Adelia. Let him speak immediately. Doug replied that because the deprivation ritual could only be done once, it was very important to test its performance to make sure Master Allen would get his talent. And so he needed to find someone he could test everything on. Sal realized that Adelia was in danger because of him. The guy told him he could let him go. But Sal changed his mind and cut his hand until it bled using his technique. And Doug realized right away that it was blood magic. Sal told him to go back to Madame Cooper and tell her that the ritual was successful Now she could use it on him. If she didn't, she would find out what would happen. Doug asked the guy why. Sal replied that, of course, it was to reveal who Alan really was. Doug came to Madam afterward and told her that the magic deprivation experiment had been a success. Alan was talking to his future wife at that moment and asked Gloria if she wanted to take a walk with him in the garden, but the girl told him to back off. Hera asked, did it really work? Doug replied that it absolutely did. On the next full moon, which is also the young lord's adulthood celebration, they will make it. Hera told the servant that he was doing a great job. And finally his dream of many years would come true. Alan's mother will make sure he becomes the new head of the family without any problems. But no, she wants him to be the strongest man in the entire empire. Alan asks the lady, is she playing hard to get? Of course it's a shame he's already realized that. Alan was overjoyed that his mother had arranged for him to meet his fiancée, although what girl would be against meeting her? Gloria got angry and asked how could such a fool be his fiancée? Alan was frightened and thought the woman was crazy. Gloria pulled out her sword and told him to overpower her in the fight. Alan was frightened and shouted for someone to stop her. But then Sal ran up and took the blow on his sword, stopping Gloria. Sal asked the Lord, is he all right? He came to save him. Alan got angry and asked what made him think he needed his rescue. He just didn't take his sword for a walk, and considered him a twerp, for he wanted to mock him. Gloria asked Sal how he got here, but either way, it's great. Maybe they'll go have a duel. Sal apologized and said he had a lot to do today. And Alan looked at all this and wondered why Gloria was so attached to this boy. Gloria took offense and said that not everyone gets the chance to fight her, so he should think twice. Alan at this point thought Gloria was in love with Sal. He got mad and told the guy that he and his fiancée. But Hera interrupted him and asked him to come over. Alan turned around and saw his mother. He decided that he would deal with that woman after the wedding. Alan said that since Lady Gloria did not wish to honor him with her presence today, he would leave them. Gloria immediately wished him well, and now that no one is stirring under his feet, if he refuses her again, she will attack him immediately. Sal agreed and said they would fight tonight. But before they did, he had one favor to ask of her. Gloria got curious and asked him to tell her. Sal said he would like to meet her older brother, Duke Isaac. Upon meeting with him, Sal said he had a plan to break the prenuptial agreement between Gloria and Alan. But to do that, he's going to need his help. Have him borrow an Isaac family heirloom, the Box of Illusions. Sal remembered that in his past life, Duke Isaac had been unhappy with both Alan himself, who was a lecher, and the alliance with the Cooper family. He had tried many times to break their joint contract, but the royal family had rejected his requests. So now, in this life, he could take advantage of that. Isaac said he's an arrogant boy. How could someone like him ruin the king's contract and still ask him for favors? Sal replied that Isaac was exactly what he needed. He could solve all his problems. Seeing the blade in his hands, he was surprised and thought that there was indeed an S-level talent in the Cooper family. Sal threw a punch and said that since they couldn't break the prenup, it might be worth it to get rid of the lowly young gentleman. What would the Duke say to that? Isaac stood in a stupor and didn't know what to say to this guy. So a month later, Doug was telling Madam that everything was ready. The only thing wrong is the absence of Sal himself. He's not among the other bastards. Hera replied that she understood and told the servant that he was free to go. The bastard of the group said that he honestly doesn't understand why he called them all here to remind them that they are mindless dogs to him, and he is their master. The guy replied that he was the only one worthy of the right to lead the Cooper family. After all, no matter how you look at it, he's the only one with S-level talent. But the other guy asked them to be a little quieter because the master might hear them. The bastards approached the head Cooper, and one of them said that all the guests were already in place and they had, at his direction, set a table for them so they wouldn't have to wait for him. Suddenly, Isaac suddenly appeared and told Duke Cooper that it was definitely a coincidence, and asked if he'd like to have a little chat. Leon told him that he didn't remember inviting him. Isaac replied that after all, it was his future son-in-law's coming-of-age party. He wants to join the feast and have fun too. Sal was standing behind the wall at that moment and said that everything was in place, and it was time to activate the box. Sia replied that he understood. Sia ran to the guys and told them to open the gates of the abyss and erase the thousands of illusions from the shadows. All the warriors put their swords to the box and asked her for it to open immediately. Suddenly, Alan came up to him and told him that he had finally found him, and he asked Sal what he was doing here all alone. Is he hiding from the others? But Adelia, at that moment, was having a terrible dream, where Alan held Sal in chains and pulled out his knife, saying that such talent would now be his. Adelia saw it all before her eyes and became very worried for him. But opening her eyes, she realized that they were dreams of the future. The girl was telling her to stop dozing and get to work. Adelia replied that she would start right away. But suddenly she applied the power of the stars. She looked up and realized it wasn't a dream. It was a vision from a past life. At this time, star power was a gift that time mages could unlock. Possessing it, wizards are able to use the power of the stars to see fragments of the past or future. Adelia ran and saw that Sal was now in danger. She decided she had to stop Alan before he got to him. Suddenly coming out of the bushes, she saw Alan saying that his father had asked her to pass him a glass of wine. Adelia found them and immediately applied her light of tranquility, the power of the stars, and ordered that she put him to sleep. Let Alan sleep for a few months. Suddenly someone saw her and immediately headed to attack. Hera realized it was her, too, and ordered the warrior to stop her. The warrior did his task perfectly and caught her. Hera thought immediately, didn't Doug say the experiment was a success? And why was she still able to use magic? But anyway, now is not the time to think about it. We must concentrate on the ritual. Sal didn't even look at the glass and drank all the wine at once. But then he couldn't help himself and dropped the glass on the ground. Alan started mocking him and telling him he was an idiot. He managed to fall for the same trick twice. After imprisoning him underground, Alan asked, how did he get the S-level talent? And how was he able to defeat the demonic dragon? Alan kept beating him up and asking how could Gloria have fallen in love with him? After all, it was all supposed to belong to him. Suddenly Hera came and told her son to stop venting his anger and let it go to Elu. Doug came right over and said that this dagger was designed specifically so that it could pierce through his indestructible body. Alan looked at it and replied that it wasn't bad. And what a pity that his talent would now become not his. Alan didn't even flinch after that and stabbed the dagger into his heart, screaming for him to die, and then telling him to cry and beg for mercy. He would still be the only worthy heir to the Cooper family. He'll have the best talent of all, along with a huge mala and an impenetrable body. No one will be able to top him. But then raising his head, he thought a very strange thing. Sal suddenly started laughing out loud. He said it was a great show. Everyone was shocked and asked how so. Sal broke the chains and told Alan to better open his eyes and see whose fate was really going down the drain. Sal didn't keep things quiet for long, and with a wave of his finger, moved them all into the banquet hall. And all the people started screaming that Alan was crazy, and doing this in front of everyone. So that's what the Cooper family's eldest son really is. And it turns out that now the rumors of his talent have turned out to be false. And is such a man worthy to be the heir to an entire family? And then why shouldn't he take his place? Hera thought it was impossible, and she didn't understand. How did this boy know what they were going to do to him? Had the test of the ritual failed? But when things didn't go according to plan, now it was important to get out of this situation somehow. Alan started yelling at them that they had it all wrong. That's how I just set him up. Isaac started clapping and said what a great performance it was. But what would Duke Cooper say to that? Leon looked at his son and addressed him in his gruff voice. But Alan could not explain anything to him. Hera took it all in stride and said that she was the one who made Alan do it. If he wants to punish someone, he'd better punish her. But Leon didn't do anything to her, and walking over to his son, he immediately gave her a hard slap. Sal looked at the whole thing and said it was cruel. Alan asked what was he wrong about. He's just a pathetic bastard. Everything that belongs to him is not his by right. Hera tried to calm him down and told him to shut up. People were already saying that Duke Cooper was a native himself, and he himself reached such heights thanks to his personal army and never hid it. But to have his own son speak so directly about it. And what will happen to the Duke's reputation now? Leon stood in front of his son and drew his sword and asked him if he had said everything. Pointing his sword, he turned to his children and asked them to listen carefully. And he said that today the contest for the inheritance begins. The bastards were shocked and realized at once what it meant. It's that they can all fight for the right to be the heir, by any means necessary. No restrictions. Winner takes all. Leon told them to finish Alan off first. Isaac started laughing again and asked, "Is this the legendary spirit of the Cooper family, where strength is paramount?" He had finally seen it. But the good news is it's over. Now they will tear up their marriage contract. He will not allow his sister to be married to a man who can only blabber, being a weakling. Leon turned around and realized that what had just happened was clearly the action of the illusion box. Isaac was obviously the one in cahoots with this kid. There are many other noblemen gathered at the feast. Any rumor that reaches the royal family from them will only hurt them. Then we should back off for now and put this matter aside for later. Leon told him not to worry. He would discuss everything with His Majesty and contact him afterward. Isaac shook his hand and replied that it was as he expected from the wise head of the Cooper family. Leon turned to Sal and said as far as he was concerned, "Anyone can fight for the right of inheritance, but you can't denigrate the family name by your actions. And the intruder will disappear without a trace." Sal asked him, does he think he wants to be the heir? If the head wants him gone, let him do it now, and called him father. Then he grabbed the sword with his hands and squeezed it until it bled. Leon was surprised and didn't know what this guy really wanted. But putting his sword away, he decided that was enough. The warrior asked the Lord if he was sure he didn't want to teach him a lesson. Leon replied that no. He's a pretty strong guy, and he's wondering what he's going to do next. But this guy's temper is nasty, and he doesn't even know who he is. After the ceremony, Hera went home. She asked the servant where the leak came from. Who told that kid about their plans? Doug answered her that he didn't know either. But the warrior approached the mistress and asked what they should do with the maid. Hera replied that he should throw her to the monsters. But suddenly she remembered that Adelia had used magic recently, and that could have been either because of the failure of the magic deprivation experiment, or she hadn't been deprived of anything at all. Hera looked at Doug and asked, "He took away her talent, didn't he? So maybe show it to him right now." Doug replied that her talent was of such a high level that he still couldn't master it, and asked Madame to give him some time. And at once he wondered if the lady had understood everything. But Hera answered that it was not necessary and ordered the warriors to finish him off. The warriors started dragging him, and Doug was yelling at her to listen to her. It was all Sal Cooper's doing. He made him do it. But Hera had no pity for him and finished him off on the spot. She said that the dog betrayed its master, and he killed it for that. Why the unnecessary explanations? Hera approached the girl and told her that she would rather take her talent and find a much better use for it. Hera grabbed her by the throat and saw that there were no burns on her body. And does that mean she has the body of an ice moon? She thought. Girls with this body become enhancers when they reach adulthood. A man who becomes a booster's partner will be able to increase his strength thanks to her. Sal is out for the morning and didn't think the head of the family would keep Alan in the family after he revealed his true colors to the public, combined with his lack of talent. And I thought maybe the reason for that was Alan's mother's influence and the power of her family. But why was he allowed to stay in the castle? To keep him in check, or to keep him from running away? But she doesn't have to worry about that. He's not going anywhere until he puts Alan through all the pain he's endured in his past life. Sal suddenly turned around and heard shouting and thought, "Is that Adelia?" He said to let the guest pass, for the door was open. Gloria came in and said that her older brother had told her that he had to return the box. She had some free time and decided to come and get it in person. Sal realized that if he could get the support of the Isaac family, even if he personally finished off Alan, something might happen. Gloria asked him what he was thinking about. "She's still here, actually." Sal replied that he was thinking a little, and said that their families were equal to each other politically, but he wondered why the casket, which simply creates illusions and under very strict conditions, was her family heirloom. Gloria pretended to be intensely important and asked if he was interested. She wouldn't say until he was, but suddenly Sal turned her around and said goodbye. She decided that no one believes in this legend, and all the aristocrats already know about it. So he's going to use that to get Sal to make a deal. But even then, Sal just chased her away. Didn't even say a word to say goodbye. Gloria screamed at him that she wanted to fight him. Sal decided to come out to fight her. Immediately afterward, they went to the arena, where Gloria immediately pounced on him with her attack. But Sal just swung his sword and repelled her attack quickly. Gloria was shocked, but turned around and saw the sword in front of her. Sal said she lost again, and she had no manners, and she herself had asked him not to hold back, and, according to their agreement, she must tell him the secret of the box of illusions. Gloria said it's just a legend, and no one knows for sure if it's true or not. Sal was curious and asked what the legend was. Gloria replied that it says that a person who has mastered the power of the stars themselves, as well as time magic, can use the box to bring another person back to life, at the cost of their own. And then Sal realized that in his past life, Adelia had sacrificed her life to bring her back to this world. And now he must not only avenge his death, but also take care of her savior. And he wouldn't let that monster Alan get to her again. Suddenly the boys ran up and shouted to Mr. Sal that they had bad news. Mrs. Adelia has been kidnapped. Sal immediately got angry and asked who did it. Tell them to report quickly. The boys replied that last night, when they were preparing the box, they had seen Mrs. Adelia being taken away by Madame Cooper's men. Gloria also said that she had heard from the other maids that the young master had taken Lady Adelia into his service. And soon, when she came of age, she would be his concubine. She thought at first that they meant Sal, referring to the young gentleman. Sal immediately ran and shouted that he would finish Alan off. Gloria asked the guys, too, why are they both up? That look, Sal is clearly not coming to save, but to kill. Let them chase him. Alan had been angry the whole time, shouting how this scoundrel dared to humiliate him like this in front of such a crowd of nobles. He was going to die the most horrible death in the world. The warrior who presented the food and said he was asking the Lord to calm down. Didn't Madame ask him to wait until he was of age, and only then to decide everything? Alan got angry and kicked the man and told them to kill him immediately. But here the warrior showed the gentleman and said that he had heard that Lady Adelia, caught by his mother, was very fond of Sal Cooper. Why shouldn't he get even with her for now? Alan rejoiced and said that finally a clever thought had occurred to one of them. Alan approaches her and tells her that she is his prized concubine, and he promises her that under his careful guidance, she will become a professional light girl. Adelia was frightened and thought, what should she do? These chains are holding back all her magical power. She can't break free. But where has Sal gone? Let him save her. And Alan looked at her and saw the pitiful face, and he wondered what she would look like between his legs. Alan said she'd better get used to her role as concubine as soon as possible. But then Sal came running in and immediately flew at him with both feet. Alan didn't even have time to turn around and collapsed to the ground. But Sal didn't feel sorry for him anymore and kicked him right in the sore spot. Alan immediately cried out in pain, grabbing his balls. But Sal didn't stop there and wanted to finish him off. Each of his blows was so strong and sharp that Alan's bones simply broke. Sal just turned into a monster at that moment, and Alan was just asking for help. The warriors also joined the battle to protect their master, but Sal just didn't feel them and kill them one by one. The guys told Mr. Sal that it was bad. Gloria let Adelia out and asked that she act fast before he started turning into a demon again. Adelia ran up and immediately began to calm him down. She hugged him and told him to wake up, and she's okay. Sal turned around and saw Adelia and was glad to see him. And the warriors had just taken Mr. Allen and were trying to carry him away. Hera also came into the room, and seeing her son in such a state, she was shocked. Hera started yelling at Sal and saying he was an ungrateful bastard Is this how he repaid his father for letting him stay in the castle? Sal grabbed the chain within, turned it into his sword. Adelia was frightened and turned to him, but he didn't stop and kept walking. Hera, seeing him approach, was just shocked and asked what was he doing. Sal wounded his arm and, bleeding on Alan's head, introduced himself and said he was challenging him to a mortal combat, to the last drop of blood. After all, he cannot allow such a threat to Adelia's life to continue to live in this world. Here it was 7 days later, in the jousting arena. Sal was telling his opponent that he didn't expect him to actually show up rather than spend all those 7 days running away. Alan was surprised and asked why he should pass up such an opportunity to squash him like a pathetic insect. Sal saw that Alan had a shield that gave him goosebumps. Immediately, the duel was declared to begin. Alan immediately used the petrification jellyfish beam attack. Sal was shocked that it happened so quickly and started to dodge. Sal asked, "What is this? And why is the master of the golden sword jumping around like a monkey?" Suddenly, I saw a clue in front of me and said that the levels of sword mages, sword masters, honored sword master. He realized that the shadow oath wouldn't help against the jellyfish shield in any way. After all, petrification didn't even count as damage, so he wouldn't be able to repel it with his oath, which means he must destroy it. Alan turned to him and said, "Who would have thought that by depriving him of his Perseus blade, he had given him a jellyfish shield? And that is the difference between one who is favored by fate and one who resists it. It's useless for him to act. He can't do anything." Sal jumped into the air to strike, but Alan immediately used a jellyfish attack. Alan waited for his moment and gave the signal for the jellyfish to attack. Sal dodged the blow and used his sword to cut the jellyfish in two. Alan was angry to see that the guy had done the other thing, but Sal just didn't stop and continued to attack. Eventually, one ring from Alan's finger was destroyed. Alan said he almost forgot. He's the mage of the golden staff now. Alan pointed his hand at them and told them to devour him, and used the black magic curse of devouring. Isaac suddenly saw this and said that the guy was a bastard. After all, it would take thousands of innocent people's souls to use this magic. And turning to Leon, he said that he was waiting for an explanation. Leon replied that it was a family secret. He asked him to respect their traditions. Alan was shouting at this point to his opponent that he was an idiot and he wouldn't even dodge. Then let him enjoy the pain. Alan saw that everything was ruined and said it wasn't working. That's impossible. It can't be. He's practiced this ability hundreds of times. After all, it's impossible to just break through them without getting hit. Alan used the spirits again and told him to die. The spirits just surrounded him from different directions. But Alan was shocked that their attacks didn't give him a scratch. Sal told the guy that he had fought enough, it was time to die. Alan smiled and replied that he was his shadow. And where did he get that from? But Sal applied the shadow's doom damage transfer. Alan asked him, could he hit him? But then drops of liquid just splashed onto the guy in the bleachers. Alan asked, how is that possible? Sal realized that he had forgotten that the oath automatically transferred any damage to his shadows. Alan raised his staff and asked, what is it? Did he really care about the lives of these bastards? Sal didn't know why, but he had managed to escape the influence of the shadow oath. However, there was definitely no way for him to escape it. Alan said that since that was the case, he would just waste their lives to attack his staff, and slowly began to nourish the bastard strength. Alan just became a monster and told the guy to just look at himself. Is he giving up already? Too bad it won't stop him. All those bastards deserve that fate. Sal said he refused to become a beast like him and decided to use the forbidden magic of blood formation. Using it against him, Alan just started to lose his power and was shocked, not realizing why this was happening. The bastards rejoiced immediately after the staff was destroyed and said that the life force had returned. And Sal did all of this. Just then, a huge dragon began circling over the arena. Sal told Alan to enjoy his last breath. Sal asked the dragon, is he mad too? Isaac was shocked and said it was the legendary dragon armor. Does it really exist? Gloria asked her brother what he was talking about. Isaac replied that, according to legend, if you tame a demonic dragon, a true spiritual bond can form between it and its master. Under the influence of strong emotions, the dragon can change its shape and amplify all the abilities of its master. The dragon gave full formation to his master, and Sal dressed up in dragon armor. Alan was shocked and said it was impossible. It simply couldn't be. Even if he had the blessing of this little creature, he would never be able to reach an understanding with it. Alan decided it must be another illusion. Now he would dispel it. So he used the attack of the Great Curse. Sal reflected that and said that what helped them understand each other and come together was hating him. Sal simply flapped his dragon wings and repelled Alan's attack with ease. Alan ended up losing an arm and screamed that he was in a lot of pain. Sal said that one arm was for stealing from the innocent their talents. Hera at this point was very scared for her son, but Leon told Hera to sit back down. Alan had told him he was only a bastard, and how dare he do that? Sal continued to attack and said that for all those shadows that died for him, and for himself, someone he killed in a previous life, he took away his natural gift. For all the evil he has done in the past, present, and future, he may have already gone to hell. But suddenly Hera entered the battle and repulsed his attack. Leon asked her, "What is she doing?" This battle is a sacred duel, a tradition of their family. Alan was completely beaten up and said he was in pain. Isaac said that her nobility Lady Hera was once a magnificent S-level mage. He can't even imagine that he would be honored to see her on the battlefield, especially after marrying Lord Brad. And she used a magic artifact to build the 8-circle holy barrier. Could it be the rumor that she lost her magical powers during the murder of the past head of the Cooper family? Hera didn't waste any time and applied the 9 circles of white magic holy spear. She said she knew he would become a monster and should have finished him off while he was still a child. Now, she would correct her mistake. But Leon decided not to look and ordered them to stop all this immediately. Hearing the order, Hera's staff immediately shattered into small pieces. Sal also retracted his armor under himself. Isaac said, as expected of a silent swordsman, nothing could overpower his forbidden scream. Leon walked up to them and told the guy that he had no place in the Cooper family, and immediately have him pack up his people and leave. Sal replied to his father that he would regret that decision. But Hera was just as angry and told her husband to let her finish him off. Leon told her to get off his property, or she would regret it. Sal turned around and told his men that it was time for them to leave. On the way, Isaac asked the boy if he wanted to join Isaac's family. Sal answered him that he didn't have to go with him, and he realizes he's an outcast now, doesn't he? Wouldn't that be a direct declaration of war on the Cooper family? Sal thought for a moment and said he couldn't join his family, but he could offer them a deal. Isaac was surprised and asked him what he meant. Sal replied that the king was terminally ill. War among the aristocrats was inevitable, but he could assure him that if he got into the Royal Academy, he would be the first to get the latest news from the capital. Isaac told the guy he was pretty calculating. Does he want him to help him get into the academy? But why trust him all of a sudden? Sal realized that since he had an S-level talent for swordsmanship, it was time to use that trump card. Sal answered him that because he could become a disciple of silent, holy blade Chris. Isaac was surprised and asked the same Chris? At that moment, Chris opened his eyes and asked, who else is there remembering him? And he is the silent holy blade. A few days later, on the outskirts near the town of St. Gore, Sal asked the gentleman if he could see those 3 heads in the distance. It's St. Gore's security barrier, the Holy Trinity. If you can see them in the distance, it won't be long before we reach the city. Isaac replied that he should warn, even outside the academy, St. Gore's is full of other aristocrats, so he should be careful. Sal realized that this guy couldn't be trusted in any case. He was always ready to stab him in the back if it would benefit his family. So he'd have to find a way to get rid of him as soon as possible. Isaac told him not to worry. He will see to his entry into the Royal Academy. Lady Adelia will be his maid, so the 2 of them can live together. As for his soldiers, they can temporarily serve as guards at the Isaac family's mansion. guarding their mansion from any thieves. When Sal heard about the thieves, he thought it was his chance. Isaac had said that although they were called common thieves, they were known to be the shadowy hands of the aristocrats of St. Gore, which made dealing with them a real hassle. Sal ran forward and told them to leave the thieves to him. Isaac asked, what should Lady Adelia do? Sal replied that she would only be in the way now, and have Mr. Isaac escort her to the Royal Academy. Gloria turned to her brother, but Isaac said that the first thing to do was to settle this kid's people on the estate. At this time, Sal arrived in the thicket of the forest. He thought that, judging from Angela's story in her past life, she must have been captured by brigands when she was about 7 years old. But the Holy Blade, Cree, her father, had been searching for his daughter for many years and was willing to do anything to save her. And if he managed to rescue her from captivity, he would have a chance to become his apprentice. Sal immediately used his dragon and dressed himself in iron armor. He did not hide and flew over the students as they practiced. Sal went down to them, and after finishing off a few guys, he used the first inherited swordsmanship technique, Blood Shadow Glitter. After that, he ran at them and had already used the second inherited swordsmanship technique, a rampant feast of blood snakes. But Plon, the bandit leader, was the strongest and engaged Sal. The boy turned around and deflected his attack with ease. Sal didn't waste any time and used the third inherited swordsmanship technique of Blood Shadow Decapitation. Plon was surprised and shocked to see the sword of the Blood Demon, and he said, "Is he from the Cooper family? Doesn't he know that they—" But Sal didn't let him finish his sentence, and with his sword he chopped his head off. Sal said, "They're just a bunch of evil things. He doesn't care what they are." Meow flew up right away. Meow shrank back and perched on his master's shoulder. Sal asked him what was wrong. Had he found the place he had asked him for? Meow replied, waving his head, that he had found it. Sal ordered him to show him the way. When Sal arrived, he grabbed the stone head and opened the dungeon. The girl came down and asked him if he had come to save him. Sal replied that he had come to take her to her father. He wanted to become his apprentice. He remembered that Angela had said that from childhood she could see a man's intentions and whether he was telling the truth. The girl held out her hand and said that the guy wasn't lying and she would go with him. Sal slowly walked up to the exit and answered that they wouldn't just let them out of here. Monsters appeared in front of them and wouldn't let them come out. The monster was made of bones. Sal told Angela that the big guy at the entrance is incredibly strong. He can only block one of his attacks. So when they go forward, he'll distract him and she'll run for her life. He understood that the attack of a 4-meter-tall skeleton was equal in strength to that of a sword master, and this one was as much as 5 meters tall. Sal turned to the dragon and said that this time they were putting their lives on the line, and he told Angela to get ready. Angela replied to her brother not to worry, and she was ready. Sal ran outside and used his attack. But Skeleton was so huge that with his bones, he simply let go of his arm and tried to fend off Sal's attack. Sal held him back and shouted to Angela to run out right now. The girl just immediately ran into the woods. Sal said the dragon armor has another ability, and it was time to test its powers. Sal turned to the dragon and ordered it to remove the armor. It is an ability that instantly separates the armor from the wearer's body, removing it and immediately releasing all the magical power that has accumulated. Sal says a mere skeleton won't be an obstacle to his revenge. So all that's left is to take Angela and get out of here together. The skeleton used his circle attack and told the guy to die. But at that moment, the circle was directed at Angela. But that circle turned into a bomb that immediately burst into flames. But Meow just grabbed Angela and saved her. But suddenly Meow just couldn't hold her and let her go. But Sal ran up and caught Angela. Sal rescued her and told her it was a closed magical formation, and to escape, they need to destroy its core. But as long as that thing is chasing them, they won't be able to find it in peace. Angela replies to her brother that this is the cannonball he's talking about. Could it be in a place no one is allowed to go? Sal replied that, of course, and asked her if she knew such a place. Angela answered that when she was released from the dungeon, there were only 3 places where it was forbidden to go. That's one of them over there, the one closest to them. Sal got excited and said they would start the search with him. This skeleton, although strong, is quite slow. However, at long range, it can throw no less powerful magic projectiles. Sal burst into the room and said he's not wearing any armor right now. Even a single shell could hurt him badly. Sal looked around the room and said it was clearly reinforced, but it wouldn't last long. Suddenly, Angela told her brother that bow, it was calling to her. Sal replied that he understood and asked her to only look at him. Just then, a bolt of lightning passed through that room, which ended up in Angela's hands and turned into a bow. Sal asked, "Is this a blessing of the sylphs?" Angela replied that it is. "That big monster will be here soon, and we'll go to the next place already." Angela showed her brother where the second place was, and they ran there. But the skeleton did not leave them and was still chasing them. Sal burst into the second room and said that they had found it, and it was here. But then they saw a huge ball in front of them. Sal wondered if it was the wizard who created the skeletal thug that ordered him to self-destruct. Sal told her that his next appointment might drive him crazy. If that happened, let him escape at all costs. Angela answered him not to worry. She believes in him. Sal turned into a demon and decided it was time to use the power of the sword, and used the fourth hereditary swordsmanship technique, and used his bloodbath. The ore that stood there suddenly began to collapse. But the demon that had taken Sal's soul said it was his now. Angela saw this and was very frightened for her brother. After all, she had seen everything with her own eyes. At this time, in the capital's St. Gore Royal Academy, Chris just sat in front of the door and dozed off. A servant came to the Lord and told him that the second prince's soldiers had left the city. Shall they send their men after them? Chris asked, "And the other Sanders is out of town? Have a servant clean up after his wine. He'll definitely come back for it, after he checks it out in person." The servant took the wine and said that at last the master was free. At this time in the bandit camp, Sal was out of breath and did not know what he was doing. Angela looked at her brother and saw that he was unresponsive. Meow saw that her master was not himself and lifted the girl up into the sky so as not to hurt her. But Angela had suffered several wounds, and seeing her brother's face, she didn't understand how to bring him to his senses. Suddenly, the dragon saw that the master was starting to overreact, and it released its fiery flames. But Sal answered his pet in the same way, and produced his sword, and Griffin just walked up to the girl and defended her. But Angela remembered that Sal had said his next appointment might drive him crazy. If that happened, let him escape at all costs. Angela decides to save him and pulls an arrow and shoots it into the sky, and she's sure to survive. Angela fired an arrow and missed. Then Sal got angry and attacked her with his sword. But the griffin and the dragon stood to her defense. But Sal started talking and asked what the lovely young apple was, and he even wondered which part of it to try first. Angela fell to the ground after her brother's blow and couldn't move. But Sal did not spare her and grabbed her by the throat and lifted her into the air, touching her neck with his sword. Sal said it's such pure blood, and he wants to open up her breasts and let her strengthen his body. Angela told her brother not to be upset. He did everything he could. But Sal was in the monster's chains at this time, and suddenly opened his eyes and turned to the blood demon and ordered that he dare not go that far. The demon said it was impossible, and he couldn't wake up on his own and stop resisting. He can't stop the inevitable. His will obey him. Sal replied that indeed so, he was bad for his own will. However, it would only be enough for him to do one thing. Sal raised his sword above his head and decided to use the bloodsucker. But the demon screamed at him not to, and he would destroy himself. And even if he survived, he would never be a swordsman again. Sal told him not to worry. Chris will help him solve this problem soon, and he's already done. The demon replied that by pinning his hopes on others, he was only dooming himself to inevitable failure. At that time, the assassin from Sanders' squad was over Sal's body. The assassin said, "Here comes the lad who has brought his majesty so much trouble." Raising his knife, he threatened to kill him. But Angela appeared in front of him and told him not to dare to hurt his brother. The assassin felt his hand just break, and the knife also split into several pieces. He asked what had happened. Suddenly her father appeared in front of Angela and told her that she had gone through so much suffering in these few years, and let her forgive her father for being so late. Let her come over and they would go home. Angela said no, and you can't leave your brother here. The man told the guy he could help him with treatment if he wanted. Sal replied that he wished for much more. After all, he had risked everything to save Angela and to be his heir. The man came up and said that he had saved her in the end with his own hands. Sal replied that even though his recklessness had led to minor complications, he had finally managed to pry her out of the second prince's grip. Hadn't he? 7 days later, the Royal Academy man said that although he hadn't fully recovered yet, he had already alerted everyone in the city. He would be his future heir. Sal asked, "Is he now enemy number one for the entire academy?" The man replied that he could give up his future title and his new teacher at any time. People were starting to say that Sal killed his brother. Didn't he lie to Chris to become his apprentice? Sal said he wants to accomplish much more than just his legacy. A couple of angry students won't stop him. Suddenly, William, an ordinary student, stood in front of him and held out his sword, saying that he was the murderer of his fellow students, a tramp who dared to deceive Master Chris. And now he, William, challenges him to a duel, where to forfeit all this undeserved honor. Sal saw that it was such a bloodthirsty aura that not even all the other enemies surrounding him could suppress. Prince Sunderst, Lord of the Bandits. So what's their plan? And use William's sense of justice to turn him against them? William told the guy that if he dared to refuse this duel, just have him leave Master Chris and renounce the title of his heir. Sal beckoned that he had also been used in a past life to challenge him to a duel, and he can't believe it's happening again. However, it's going to happen just like it did before. Sal said he accepts his challenge, but if he loses, he will swear loyalty to him until death. The boys were rooting for William and begging him to beat the kid up, and showed him that only the best of the best could get into the Imperial Academy, not mongrels. William pounced on Sal and shouted at him to defend himself, and used the imperial swordsmanship of chopping with a jerk. And Sal answered him with a blood demon swordsmanship technique bloody cut. He stood over him and told William to just give up, and he's no equal to him. But William was unwilling to give up, and used the imperial swordsmanship art of Chi Blast. Sal thought that was bad. After all, he had interrupted his attack. He would only be able to use the bloody cut again after 1 second. William didn't want to just give up and try to finish him off with his sword, but Sal dodged it. Sal realized that this was his strongest technique, and had he really learned it while he was still at the academy? William immediately turned around, and together with a punch, he shouted for him to surrender and repent for his deception, and immediately applied the chopping technique. Chris looked at the battle and said that blood magic was very different from other schools of magic. In his current state, the maximum would be to use the second technique at the Silver Swordmaster level. Sal mentally apologized to his teacher. After all, for the sake of William's recognition and loyalty, he was willing to take such a risk. William simply struck hard and said it was over. Sal turned around and used the blood demon technique of 1,000 bloody blades. William turned around and saw several attacks, just heading towards him. Everyone yelled for him to turn around, too. William saw the sword and asked, "Is fencing even capable of such a thing?" Sal told him he was his honest and faithful William. It is so nice to see that funny expression on his face again. Sal's eyes immediately turned red and started laughing loudly like a demon. William saw at once that something was wrong with Sal's aura. What should he do now? All the other guys used their powers against him because they saw that he used blood magic. And as expected of this freak, he uses forbidden techniques. The warriors also prepared to attack and said that with such demonic power, how many innocents had this guy put to death? He must be destroyed immediately. The guys told William that it's none of his business. He's not going to sacrifice himself for the life of that monster, is he? William stopped them and replied that after losing in the duel, he swore loyalty to him until death. Even if he was really a bad man, he would protect him to the end. Chris came up behind him and told him he was just as troubled as he was when he was younger, and used his punch to just knock him out. Chris says that they, students at the Imperial Academy, shouldn't be so mean-spirited dueling with a wounded man. But he assures them, when Sal is back to normal, they'll have as many battles as they want. The guys were surprised and said they were scared, like he's ready to kill them at any moment, and it felt like they were already dead. The second heir of the Shavat family, Moran Shavat, turned to the prince and asked what should they do now. The second prince of the empire, Sandro Richard, replied that he had heard Sal got here on the recommendation of a nobleman, and they would go to the main testing hall. Richard thought, is he really using blood magic? A fine school of magic for suicide. Adelia also turned to Cassidine's teacher and said that she wanted to help Sal, only she could handle the demon tormenting him. Cassidine told her not to be silly, and better to stay away. He is practicing evil blood magic after all. Adelia asked the teacher, hadn't he said that the school of magic had no bearing on whether a mage was good or bad? Cassidine replied that it was true. A person's character had nothing to do with the school of magic that he chose. However, his magic was completely different from ordinary blood magic. Chris was scolding him at this time and said that if Sal wanted to perfectly master the art of blood swordsmanship with blood magic, he had to be in perfect condition, both physically and mentally. He realized that he had worked tirelessly all those 7 days to help his body recover. He taught him how to use the power of his own blood instead of ki to strengthen his own body and use blood swordsmanship. But how's he going to thank him? Get into a stupid fight before he's even fully recovered? If he wants to destroy himself so badly, who will avenge the Coopers for all their deeds? Sal replied, that's right. He wasn't stupid enough to kill himself, but there were things that had to be done at any cost, weren't there? Chris asked, even if he dies? Or if someone else dies? Sal replied that besides, he trusted his teacher and knew that he wouldn't let his student heir go crazy and start killing everyone indiscriminately. Suddenly, the dean of the Academy's combat faculty, George Brandon, walked into the room. Cree asked him what he was doing here. He was not welcome here. George replied that he was actually outside the door, not inside. George told Sal that he was a recommended student at the Academy. According to the rules, he had exactly 1 week to complete the test to prove that he was worthy of attending their academy. And don't let Chris's whims interfere with the Academy's work. Sal asked the teacher, did he have a problem with him? Chris replied that yes, just a stubborn old man that only miraculously didn't die by his hand. As long as he doesn't break the rules of the Academy, he doesn't have to worry about him. Sal asked if he had better complete all the tests as soon as possible. Chris replied so that he should prepare well. The old man himself would conduct them, so there was no need to expect it to be easy. That night, at the entrance to the dungeon, Sandro said that old George had prepared a dungeon for their dear Sal as a test, and his job was to poison the water in it before Cooper arrived. He will become so mad that Mr. Chris will have no choice but to kill him. The next day, Sal met William and told him that they would talk after he received his assignment. William replied that his next challenge would be too difficult. Sal said that yes, he already knows that. George has had a grudge against his teacher for a long time, which means he's going to make things deliberately difficult. William replied that it wasn't just that. Now the situation at the Academy was quite complicated. Everyone was gathered in the main hall. Entering the room, in front of the door sat Philip, the student on duty, George's student. William had told Sal he was expecting him to come. Sal approached Philip and said that he wanted to take part in the trial. The boy asked him for his name and faculty. He replied that his name was Sal and he was from the combat department. Philip said that he asked the master's forgiveness, but there had been an unforeseen change in his test dungeon. Its difficulty has been increased to extreme and requires a group of at least 4 people. William asked him if he could change the task to a normal difficulty that 1 person could do. Philip replied that the singles trial would not be ready until early next week. However, according to the Academy's rules, Mr. Sal must complete a practice test within 3 days to officially become a full-fledged student. The guys started yelling for him to get out of here. They don't need scumbags like him at the Imperial Academy. Philip asked Sal, Does he want to try to find people to join the group? Or to quietly leave their academy in one piece? The guy asked Philip why he was offering him anything at all. If it were him, he'd lock him up for 3 days, so he'd be kicked out of here for sure. Sal asked Philip, does he think he can't find a team? Philip replied that he personally didn't care, he just didn't think the other students really wanted him in their ranks, much less want to become his lapdogs like William. Sal was angry and immediately put his sword in front of his face. Sal said that if he could find his teammates, he would get on his knees and apologize to William for such an insult. Philip answered him not to even dream. If he wanted him to bow down to him, he would have to kill him. Sal says he won't kill him, but will instead tell the truth to teacher Chris, and he wouldn't let his student get away with it. Philip told him that he had to assemble a team of 4 men before evening. Sal replied that there was no need, since only 4 men were needed. Adelia came up and said she was a student of the magic faculty. Gloria also came up and said that she was from the combat faculty, and they want to form a team with Sal. Sal approached Mr. Kosoglask to be kind and register him for the team, and then have him get down on his knees and apologize. And since he wanted to complicate someone else's life, was he willing to risk his own life to do it? Everyone was shocked and asked how dare he do that. But a villain will always be evil. Duty Philip was just following the rules, and he used Mr. Chris's good name to intimidate him. William told the guy that there was no need to go that far for his sake. Sal replied to make him remember that as long as they don't make any mistakes or do anything wrong, no jerk has the right to stand in their way. And he's never wrong. Philip was very angry and told the teacher that he wanted to finish him off with his own hands. George told him to mind his decorum and not to break the rules of the academy, and remembered the humiliation he had experienced today and turned those feelings into fuel for his power. And then he could appear as death itself would incarnate and take his life, when the time is right and he is not constrained by the rules. The next day, they arrived at the jungle of Melissa and stood all 4 of them in front of the portal. William said that they are now in the jungle of Milima, and according to legend, the legacy of this powerful sorceress is hidden somewhere here. However, despite the Academy owning this dungeon for several hundred years, no student has ever been able to find this legendary legacy. And the exit from this dungeon is by the lake that is at the very top of the local mountain. The foot of this mountain is the most dangerous place in the dungeon. It is home to monsters of nightmarish levels that can match the strength of a swordmaster. But near the top, it's the opposite. They're only low-level monsters. And at the lake itself, they stop attacking anyone at all. And the fog in this jungle is poisonous. A golden swordmaster will be able to last about 10 hours here due to his physical stats, while a mage of the same level, depending on his own mana, he would only be able to last 6 hours in battle. Sal suddenly told everyone to get ready for battle. There's something approaching them. Suddenly behind the forest, the boys ran at them and asked for help. They were being chased by a swarm of bees. William said it was a swarm of Melissa. Not only are they extremely tenacious, but killing them won't do any good. They'd better just stay away from them. Then they'll go away. The girl replied that it was useless. They have been running away from them for 20 minutes now, and several times we have completely changed their direction, but they are not lagging behind. Adelia saw that they needed help and applied her defense. William said it was a cat's purr and asked, "What kind of spell is that?" Sal said they ran from them for 20 minutes and didn't even have the courage to pick up a sword and fight back. And they call themselves talented warriors? Sal immediately used his blood kite and directly aimed his attack straight at the fly. After that, the power of the beam was so fast and unexpected that it went through all the flies. Sal asked, "They don't even get stronger? What a vile and useless monster." The boys rejoiced and said they were finally saved. Sal asked her, was she not at all ashamed to be saved by her rivals? The girl replied that he was a village savage and did not even understand anything. Sal told her, how could any nobleman consider her a pathetic bastard that could not inherit a title or his own family name as his rival? And if she had the brains to offer to escort them to the exit, maybe she would offer to be his servant. The girl was surprised and asked, what was that? Gloria replied that the swarm must have attracted the attention of other monsters. William said for everyone to be careful. Something was obviously wrong with these monsters. Suddenly, a huge bear appeared in front of them. But Sal was already prepared for that and said it didn't matter, just that they would finish them all off. Sal knew that the art of blood swordsmanship was a special fighting style based on the use of blood magic and passed down in the Cooper family from generation to generation. Due to the fact that this style uses magical power in a noticeably physical manner, the movements during combat become so abrupt and unpredictable that it becomes almost impossible to resist it. The bear was not afraid and applied bone spikes and apply carnage. Sal knew to get stronger, like warriors during physical training, you only need one thing to kill. Sal took a moment and thrust his sword into the bear's mouth and demanded to control the blood and use it. And then you just have to absorb and improve your blood. That's what blood magic is all about. And a simple blood mage can't develop his abilities so quickly in battle because of his fragile body, but a blood swordsman is not limited by such a thing. Adelia saw, too, that Sal had not abandoned her and had saved her. He knew that the strength of the spilled blood was not important, for each drop would only make the owner of this style stronger. And the only problem with this style is that all that anger and hatred accumulated in the collected blood will not disappear anywhere. On the contrary, it will merge into the image of an immortal demon inside the wine itself. An eternal, unbreakable curse that only a truly remarkable willpower could suppress. Adelia asked Sal if he was all right. Sal answered her not to worry. Thanks to Chris's teacher's treatment, high-level monsters were no problem for him. Sal looked at all those monsters and used his blood power, and used it all on the monsters. And Adelia just used protection so they wouldn't get hit. Gloria asked if the same thing was happening to him that was happening in the dragon's nest. Adelia replied that no, it feels completely different this time. The girl asked them, are they still worried about him? Anyone who uses blood magic is doomed to lose their mind. It's the natural course of things. The first and second lords of the Cooper family went mad because of magic. It is even rumored that the current head has become a silent blade master to protect the entire family from its corrosive influence. Adelia was frightened and asked for a star bond to bind them. The girl said that using such a spell on a madman was extremely life-threatening. Adelia was very frightened and entered Sal's inner world and met a demon. The demon said that it turns out that there are still people who are willing to risk themselves to save him. Adelia asked what he'd done to Sal. The demon replied that he had done nothing. The boy had chosen that path on his own. The ancestor of the Cooper family who created it was just killed by this thing. How about a deal? He'll tell her how to save him, and in return, she'll let him plant the seed of a blood demon in his heart. Adelia immediately replied that she agreed. The demon started laughing and asked why are do-gooders always so stupid? Adelia promised herself that she would surely save him, and hugged him, and ordered the starlight to purify him, and applied the starlight flux technique. The girl said that at such a young age, she was already capable of using seventh circle spells. How much time did she spend reading books? They all really don't have personal lives. Gloria got angry and addressing her as a noble lady told her to either come here and help them or shut up already. The demon was telling Sal that he'd been saved again by a little girl. And what a loser he is. And if he hadn't promised that girl to save him, he wouldn't have even thought of showing up in such a dirty place. And he'll only show him once, so he'll remember it well. He needs to learn to understand the blood he's absorbed, recognize which stream is taking away his control, and get rid of it. And if he lets that cunt take over his body again, he's going to finish that girl off, which he likes. Did he get it? The demon disappeared and lastly said that they would meet again soon. Sal replied that next time he would regret their meeting, and applied a feast of blood snakes. With a single strike, he easily destroyed all the monsters that stood in front of him. William at this moment was holding a huge crystal that was slowly gathering the monster's strength. The girl said that a demigod-level master had arrived at the dungeon. Apparently, the academy found out that they were in trouble and sent a teacher after them. Sal asked, Why would they suddenly disturb a master of such a level? Had something serious happened in the dungeon? In any case, it didn't matter. He must finish the test. The master at this moment used his sword, and after signaling began to destroy the animals. It turned out to be Oliver, a master swordsmanship instructor of the Imperial Academy, a demigod-level golden swordmaster. Oliver said the only thing left to do was to return with the bastard's head. Then His Highness Sandro would be indebted to him. Oliver realized that with the help of this artifact, specially designed by the magic department to detect those who use blood magic, he could easily find this kid and finish him off. Sal asked William if he knew why the demigod level even existed. Did he make it up to make it sound more pathetic? Oliver saw that he saved these guys on his way here. Since there are other students here, there's no way to deal with him directly. Suddenly the boys saw Oliver's teacher and asked, did he come and get them out of here? Oliver decided that it couldn't be helped. He's a good teacher after all, and everyone loves him. He'll get rid of the villain who caused the anomaly in the dungeon. Then they'll even thank him for it. Suddenly Sal noticed something, and teacher Oliver immediately threw his attack at him, telling him to die. Oliver said that this child should be happy to have been honored with death by the blade of a master swordsman. Sal dodged and said, what does demigod level mean? Is it a golden sword master level, able to use sword master level attacks? And they're all from the academy like that. It sounds so loud, but it really is nothing. Oliver was surprised and said he never died. And the blood magic feature? What? Then he'll just kill him again. Oliver realized that the image of the blood demon had trained him to find any poison in the flow of blood. Now, instead of searching for toxins, he manifested its movement through his body. Sal dodged the attack and saw the power flowing through his body. Thus, he could predict all of his actions ahead of time. If he could fully master this technique, he could even copy other people's movements and techniques in the future. But Sal retaliated with a cat purr. William was not left out, and pounced on Oliver with an imperial chop. Oliver simply used his sword and repelled the boy's attack. And he realized that Sal wasn't so easy to kill, and William was still fighting with all his might. And it looks like he's going to have to take advantage of that. Oliver just didn't play with them any further and used his attack to order them both to die. The sonic attack proved far more interesting, and a huge dragon appeared in front of them. Oliver decided that the students would be grateful to him for giving them such an unusual practice, right? The boys were scared too and screamed that Oliver wanted to kill them. And it couldn't be that. Teacher Oliver would never do that. But he just used a teleportation scroll and escaped. A maddened traitor. One of them grabbed his head and said, and he still has to make money, become successful, and have a family. He can't die. And the other guy said he should fight. During the battle, Sal told William to block the monster's blows. The boy replied that it would be done. But all four dragons were just unbearable and used their attacks against the guys. But Sal told Adelia and Gloria to protect these losers. They're their witnesses. Adelia applied her powers and used the wall. Gloria shouted at her that her magic would be much more powerful if he stopped giving her names like that. During the battle, Sal shouted to William to give him the crystal. William replied that it's a trial test. If they die, he will still fail it. Sal realized that the monster was of a catastrophic level, and he was sure if he used the Shadow Blood Blade technique, the demon would definitely be able to take control of his body. What if you only use skills below the silver level, he thought. Sal told Wilm to divert his attention to himself. He would need some time. William started fighting one of the dragons and slowly distracted it while the Lord does his thing. But the dragon began to improve, and in the middle appeared a huge and major dragon of them all. William just didn't stay away and applied imperial fencing chopping. He was already at his limit and asked Sal how much more time he needed to collect blood. Sal prepared himself and replied with a couple more seconds. But at that time, Gloria applied the extermination attack of the Dance of Blades. But in a moment, she felt sick and passed out. Adelia saw Gloria pitching and yelled for someone. Sal suddenly had already prepared himself completely and said that his beast doom had come. He immediately used the Blood Flame Serpent Strike. and try to slay the dragons with a single strike. Sal didn't even turn around and wondered if this was the end. The dragons slowly began to burn, while he was already approaching the guys. But one of the guys, Luis, told Sal that he was a demon who used blood magic, a villain who betrayed his family and was ready to kill his comrades. William heard those words and shouted at him to stop. Luis just raised his sword to the sky, and everyone thought he was going to attack. But Luis sat down on his knee and said that his classmate, Sal, if it wasn't for his help, he would be dead by now, and asked him to accept his sincere apology. The other guys also asked him to accept their apology and thanks. Suddenly the girl shouted to them to see what it was. When they looked up, they saw a swarm of flies coming towards them. Sal immediately used his bloody eyesight. He saw that there was clearly some mystery behind the swarm. Sal told Adelia to protect herself and these people, let her take care of them. She immediately used the purple flash attack. But Sal headed into the water, and the Mahi tried to attack him with lightning underwater. He said that now he understood Melissa's so-called swarm was nothing more than a simple tool for gathering life forces. And their real purpose is to resurrect the sorceress Milima using magical formation in this heart. Again, black magic. The kind of freaks who would take everything from others just to survive. And he used the blood serpent attack. It went straight for the heart. The guys around them started cheering and saying that their power was back again, and they were feeling much better, and saw that a gate from the dungeon had opened nearby. Sal looked and replied that he didn't even think he would accidentally find a way out. And what happened in this dungeon must remain a secret. Otherwise, not only will His Highness plan to unify the Academy suffer, but he himself will suffer as well. Oliver thought it could always be worse. The portal from the dungeon opened, but who managed to survive? And this time he has no margin for error. He won't let anyone live. After Sal came out of the water, Adelia got excited and asked if he was okay. Sal answered that, as he did with them all. His powers have been restored, both physical and magical. He also found a couple things at the bottom of the lake. Adelia looked and said that this crystal vial smelled like the poison that came from the monsters. So that's what poisoned them. And you don't often see vials of crystal. When he gets back to the academy, he'll ask his teacher about it. He'll probably tell her how to find the culprit. Sal replied that he would rely on her then. William looked at it and said that judging from its size, it must be a catastrophic level magic crystal that fell from a 5-headed dragon. And it's a shame they had to waste the past crystal, but they can't be in this poisonous fog anymore. And this is his trial run. Suddenly a warrior came up and told them to take it. It was a crystal that he had managed to collect during his own test, and may Sal pass that test. The other guys told him to take them too, and they thanked him very much. William rejoiced, for at last Sal had been accepted by everyone in a great way. Oliver decided that what had happened in that dungeon must remain a secret. If not only His Highness's plan to unify the Academy would suffer, but also his own. And could it always be worse? The portal from the dungeon opened. Who managed to survive, he thought. But this time he has no margin for error. He won't let anyone live. Oliver saw them come out and jumped right on Sal and asked why couldn't they just die in that dungeon. Sal was surprised and replied that it wasn't bad, but he dodged and used his bloody flash. Adelia asked the guy if he was okay. Gloria also yelled that they were rushing to his aid. Sal used his bloody vision, and he said that this time he would definitely finish him off. But Oliver didn't stop and yelled at the guy that he was a poisonous bastard and let him go to hell. Sal attacked him, too, and replied that he was the only one who would die here. He used his punch to push Oliver aside. But suddenly a man stood between them and told them to stop everything immediately. George asked Oliver what he was even doing. George is angry because Oliver broke the rules. He's just making things harder. And for the sake of the second prince's mission, the lives of a bunch of students are worthless. The warriors were surprised and asked, what other poisoner? The girl turned to George and asked if he had any proof. George replied that it was a magic scroll personally created by the Academy's rector. It detects the odor of poison. If there is one among them who has used the poison, the scroll will find him. The scroll just walked up to the crystal at that moment. The guys were surprised and started asking, did Sal really do that? Impossible. He had just saved them. Or he purposely used the poison for the sake of fulfilling his challenge, and afterward just took the chance to save them and restore his reputation. And are there such shameless and pathetic people in the world? George thought they were a bunch of pathetic scum. They were so easily deceived. And what can you take from those who are destined to be mere pawns in this life? George asked the boy if he had anything to say for himself. Sal replied that if he wanted to accuse a person of something, there was always an excuse. But if he thinks he's going to surrender without a fight, he can only dream. George couldn't stand it any longer and immediately grabbed him by the throat. Sal saw that the old man was very fast, and that is the strength of a true swordmaster. He can't move. As soon as he grabbed him, the magic stopped working too. George said that according to Rule 367 of the Academy's charter, a teacher could finish off anyone who attacked him within the Academy's walls without any repercussions. And Chris's heir and student let him take his punishment. But at the last moment, he couldn't do anything, and his shot was simply deflected. But then the principal came in and told George to wait, and the time of execution had not yet come. George turned around and was telling the headmaster that this was the magic scroll they had given him. He found a trace of the spoil on Sal. The director immediately applied an advanced identification technique. Did he realize that the royal family's secret poison for killing blood mages? And Chris really did give him too much trouble with that kid. The director said that it still doesn't prove anything. They should put them in the dungeon first and then start investigating. And you better lock them up for a while. There's going to be an unstoppable stream of assassination attempts on this guy. The principal said it was time to go back. There was no reason for the students to waste their time on such trivial matters. The disciples asked if Sal was the one who sent the beasts or not. Some of them answered that he did. After all, Mentor George had discovered his poison with the help of the headmaster's scroll. At this time, Academy Dungeon Chris was saying that this poison was the royal family's special weapon against blood mages. According to what he had found out, Prince Sandro had gotten it. Sal got mad and replied that he wouldn't let up on him and would soak him. Chris walked away and said that was just childish. Let him stay here and think about the fact that in this world, no matter how many enemies he kills, there won't be any less of them. Oliver said on the other side of the wall that Sal is just a jerk. Mr. Key's job is to protect the royal family, and he told him to his face that he wanted to kill the prince. And he was honored to contribute to His Highness's plan. Sal remembered in the moment how people said it was an honor to be a shadow of the Cooper family. They should be proud of it. Sal asked the guy, he never wondered if it was worth it? To waste your talent, all your effort, to fulfill someone else's desires? Or does he himself want to be treated as an expendable commodity whose life can be sold at any moment? And does he really not care about anything else? If he confesses to Headmaster Albus what he did in the dungeon, it will help him get rid of the prince's influence. Oliver couldn't take it anymore and yelled at the guy to shut up. Does he want him to become like him? A rabid animal who betrayed his family and his master? Sal asked him what he's talking about. He can't even wait to see what the master he is so loyal to will do to him. Suddenly, someone came into the cell at night and told Oliver that His Highness had arranged for him and Sal to duel in the Colosseum. It was his last chance, and this precious vial of the Vine of Life would give him a glorious end. Oliver replied that he would surely do His Highness's bidding, even at the cost of his life. The servant said it was good that he understood that. His Highness appreciates his loyalty. Oliver said after accepting the Vine of Life, he will die. So what good will fame do him after death? Suddenly he thought it was all fake. Is fame really that important? Is it really worth sacrificing your life for it? Suddenly, in the early morning, they entered the Imperial Colosseum. All the fans were happy because of the fact that they would be starting soon. The judge said today's duel would be a good old-fashioned duel. Two warriors will face each other under the attack of the beast. And whether they kill their opponent or defeat the great beast together, the brave survivors will be rewarded and congratulated by His Highness the Second Prince. Suddenly, the caretaker started shouting that the beast was about to wake up. But the boy could not escape and said goodbye with his life. Oliver told the guy that he saw him wielding his bloody techniques. If the attack's kill zone is large enough, the trick of turning into blood won't help him. But Sal didn't waste any time and immediately struck hard. But Oliver was surprised at his defense and asked what happened. Sal asked him, does he have any idea how strong a swordsman with S-grade talent is that he's been training hard since he was 4 years old? Sal realized that now that he was able to recover, he would try a Chris attack at 10 meters. So he used the silent blade rumble. Oliver's response to the guy was that he had regained his strength, and now he was no match for him. The prince thought, why hasn't Oliver used the potion yet? So he asked someone to bring Graze here. The prince decided to look at Oliver's mother, for she was the second prince's cook, and Oliver thought that if he lost, and what would they do to her? Oliver took the bottle and drank it, saying that he had no right to do so. As he drank all the liquid, he immediately felt a surge of energy. Oliver turned into a monster and attacked, screaming for Sal to die for his mother. And when he confronted him, he asked him to save his mother from the hands of the second prince. In return, he would help him kill the beast. Sal asked him what he was going to do. Oliver replied that only if he died would his mother be able to see tomorrow, and used the mining technique of the flaming blade vortex. Pouncing on the monster itself, he was caught under its tentacles, which pierced his chest. After the explosion, Prince said what a waste of time and energy. Couldn't even manage such a small thing. But Oliver's mother was just so distraught when she saw it, and she mourned the death of her son. At this time, Oliver hoped that his death could appease His Highness's anger, and hoped that Sal would see that he had paid for his sins, and saves his mother. But it turned out to be much more complicated than that. The core of the infernal life unexpectedly triggered. And lastly, Oliver told Sal that he was asking him to save his mother. Sal tried to bring him to his senses and asked him, was he working for the second prince for her? And if he dies, it's not going to help him or save anyone. Let him take care of his own family, and he'll owe him after that. Sal shattered the crystal and used blood magic to rebirth blood and flesh. He understood that the blood of the hell vine could neutralize the negative effects of the vine of life. Let him stay still and regain his strength. Teacher Chris will come after him. The prince was saying at this moment that he didn't even think that blood magic was so powerful. He was able to defeat both a beast and a demigod swordsman at the same time. And now he congratulates him. The winner can ask him for his reward. So what will he choose? Riches? Or will he beg him to forgive the wrongs he has done? Sal replied that he only wanted her. The prince was surprised and asked, just one maid? What did he want with her? Is he trying to get back at Oliver's family and get back at him? The servants began to mock her and said that Sal was indeed a true blood mage. Greed, bloodlust, the desire to kill had completely consumed his soul. So why don't he join him and become his trusty, sharp blade? Sal walked over to the maid and asked the prince if his attitude towards servants was really so fickle. Oliver gave his life for him, died following orders. Then his family was immediately thrown out into the cold. The prince approached and replied that he was sorry that Oliver had died. Sal asked what if he didn't want to join him. The prince replied that blood mages are persecuted in their empire. Only those with power could protect him. Let him become his sword, or he would be expelled from the academy as guilty of an assassination attempt. One of the warriors immediately rushed at him and asked how dare he refuse his majesty's gift. Let him watch his tongue. But Sal didn't even flinch and immediately repelled the warrior's attack. Suddenly, the doors opened suddenly, and Oliver ran in. But the guards shouted that an assassin was here, and let them protect his majesty. The maid hugged her son and was glad that he was alive. The prince became angry and asked, so he's still alive? How can such a cowardly traitor still be standing here? Let him go to hell immediately. But Sal wouldn't let them talk like that, and launch an attack saying that only they would go to hell here. Sal simply left them no chance against him and used a bloody flare on them. Upon reaching the prince, Sal told him, as he sees it, now his power is useless. The prince turned to Chris and said that as the head of the royal guard, He was also the supreme assassin of the royal family. And did he really decide to enlist as a traitor as well? Chris replied, "He is loyal only to his majesty." These are the 3 vials of the king's poison that were found in the Melissa dungeon and on Oliver's body. As head of the royal guard, it's his job to find out where they came from. Chris thought it was a good thing that Sal had saved his daughter Angela. Otherwise, Sandro would have been able to manipulate him the way he had manipulated Oliver. And the prince realized that if he continued his investigation, he would surely get to the bottom of it, and then His Majesty would definitely put him under house arrest. The exchange meeting for the new students of the academy was about to take place, and if he wasn't at it, Big Brother would definitely take away the opportunity. The prince said those 3 bottles were his gift to Moran. How Oliver managed to get his hands on them, he has no idea. And His Highness wants to say that what happened was Moran and Oliver's plan, and that it had nothing to do with them. The prince said, of course, he'll make sure Moran gets the punishment he deserves, then report back to them, and ordered him to call Moran here. Sal realized that this prince was behind it all, controlling, manipulating other people, all because of his status and wealth. But if they hurt him now, then Teacher Chris would also have a problem. We have to kill Moran first and tie the prince's hands. Philip came and asked His Highness, was he looking for him? But he wondered who had the nerve to attack a nobleman in the middle of the day. And it was him, the bastard. The bastard said that according to the sacred laws of the Empire, Moran was a baron, which meant that even if he let him kill his Sal, he would only have to apologize to the Cooper family and pay them compensation in gold. The bastard said that means he's still alive. Well, as a baron, Moran didn't break any laws of the Empire, did he? The bastard approached His Majesty and said that the Cooper family apologized to the front of the house. After all, it was the lack of discipline during his upbringing that had resulted in such a wild animal daring to raise a hand against him. The prince replied that such a rabid dog should be kept behind bars. Bastard told him not to worry. They would take it into consideration. Alan tells the bastard that they haven't seen each other in a while. So what does he say? Ready to go back to his cage? Chris told his student that he even surprised him with his reaction today. He was talking about that guy in the Cooper family who was trashing him in front of everyone else. And he was disgusted to hear it. And he's not even mad? So ask back, why would he be? He had already dealt with him more than once. But Alan is protected by shadow oaths, so he won't die. It's only the shadows of the Cooper family that will suffer. His mother wouldn't leave her son alone, and she and the head of the family are here, too. In addition, second Prince Sandro has been assigned to hold an exchange meeting for the new students of the academy. He must have invited the heads of all 7 great families that boost his infusion and power. The warriors pounced upon him and shouted that wretched poisoner. He would crush him in the name of light. And may Lord Chris not let him fool himself. May he let that false mask be torn from that insolent face. Sal replied that there was no need to shout like that. You know, there will be many talented S-level warriors at the exchange meeting who are many times more powerful than them. And they're also waiting to fight him. So he doesn't have time to duel with them anymore. Chris started laughing and replied that the kid was good. He's obviously grown up. Chris said he had arranged for him to meet with Headmaster Albus. He is extremely interested in his hereditary blood magic and wants to learn more about it. Maybe he can even help him learn something new. The principal turned to Sal and told him to use his strongest moves. Sal replied that it would not end well. The principal attacked and asked the guy, "So does that mean he respects old people? Then he's already going to start first." The headmaster applied a fist portal and attacked Sal unexpectedly, and he read the summoning spell without words. Sal also decided that he was lucky to be able to defend himself with blood magic. This strike was as powerful as a sword master's attack. The director said that even though he was already far from his best form, he could still handle a golden sword master. So give it your best. Sal replied that then he wouldn't hold back, and now he would ask the principal to teach him. Sal immediately applied the 4th bloody swordsmanship technique Bloodstorm. The director replied that the swing wasn't bad, but the effectiveness was bogged down. Let him try it. Concentrate more power in one strike. Sal immediately dodged and used the blood flame. The director asked, did he increase the power of the blow with his own blood? Sal dodged all the attacks and used his mad snake dash. The headmaster said that he was too oblivious. The blood demon wouldn't miss the opportunity to devour its master. The demon said it was a good job. Now let him die. The director said it feeds on the life force of other creatures, and Sal only enhances it by burning his own blood. And Sal constantly used high-level techniques, burning a lot of blood, which was how the demon was able to gain control over him. The demon turned to the old man and asked him to let him go. He would kill every last one of them. The principal was surprised and said he was even conscious, and that voice sounds exactly like Brad Cooper Jr.'s. Chris starts yelling to the principal that they can't go on any longer, and Sal wouldn't make it. The principal answered them not to worry. He still has strength, and to protect Sal from the demon, you have to catch the right moment and imprison the monster in chains. And he forbids Sal from using blood magic until he learns to control the blood demon. Sal replied to the principal that the exchange meeting is about to start, and he can't use his strongest techniques. Chris told him that was why he needed to master it as soon as possible. The essence of blood magic is to control and manipulate blood, and he would give him a course of special training for it. The principal replied to him that he was already used to relying on bloody swordsmanship. He wouldn't even notice if it got out of control, and then the disaster would be unavoidable. The demon said that the troops led by the first and second generations of Lord Coopers were invincible, and after all died in one night, and he never wondered what happened to him. Sal remembered and wondered if the master of bloody swordsmanship had gone on a rampage. That would explain why there was no mention of this event in the books of the family library. The principal said that there were many of his friends at their academy that he had to take care of, so if he didn't want them to die at his hands, he had to learn to control the demon inside him. Sal replied to the principal that he understood and thanked him. Chris told Sal to get going already, now, and start the special blood magic training. And upon seeing the strange bird, Chris said that the fewer people who know about this secret training, the better. The bird that had been watching everything suddenly saw Sal naked and was shocked at what he saw. Chris was saying how many birds there are in this forest. It would soon become lively at the academy. The bird soon turned into a girl and told its mistress that it was just a healing bath. Luna Forest, a disciple with S-level talent of the Forest family. One of the 7 great families said that this Lord Drunkard did it on purpose. However, the principal has forbidden Sal from using blood magic, which means he'll definitely be able to kill him at the student exchange meeting. The next day, the judge was saying that the annual exchange student transfer meeting was declared open, and it's one of the few events in the St. Gore metropolitan area that can pack an entire stadium. It's one of the few events in the St. Gore metropolitan area that can draw an entire stadium, but also to meet the heads of the biggest families in the empire, and His Royal Highness, the second Prince Sandro, the lords of the noble families, and the teachers and students of the Imperial Academy. Also here today to see the new talents and potential of their freshmen. And we need to thank Prince Sandro for organizing their meeting today. On top of that, the winner of the competition would not only receive the highest priority of studying at the academy, but also the gratitude of His Highness and won any wish. Sal noticed that the second prince was becoming more and more brazen in trying to win the love of others. In fact, it's lucky there's going to be such a reward, and he would win. The Cooper family's downfall would be much closer than before. The judge said that the competition is divided into 2 parts: qualification and tournament. In the first round, they will choose 8 worthy students who will then participate in the tournament itself. They will battle it out in a one-on-one arena until there is one single winner. The qualifying round will be held according to the old rules. 8 students who can cut off the Hydra's head and stay with it until the end of the battle will qualify for the tournament. The warriors all immediately swooped down to fight the Hydra. Someone immediately attacked, and the first Hydra head was already flying off their shoulders. And it's like natural magic. They don't teach that at the academy. Who did it? Sal saw that at such a young age. he already possessed both Raven Incarnation and Magic Arrow Creation at the same time, definitely an S-level talent. A newcomer from the Forest family is pretty good, and among the new freshmen, there were many hidden talents. And suddenly, someone dares to steal the loot from the Forest family. The boy got excited and said he was grateful to his little sister Crow for the ticket to the tournament, and he would gladly accept it. The sister Raven suddenly flapped her wings and asked the guy, did he want to die? Sal wondered at this point who was stronger. The Forest family, kings of the jungle, were done, lords of the storm. Saladin stood still and replied, how cute is that? Was she really hoping to break through his defenses with that attack? Saladin dodged and shouted at her to be careful. After all, if she loses a lot of feathers, she'll go bald. As expected of the Delanco family, they are famous for their impenetrable defense. The referee says that they have Saladin Delanco in first place. He got the Hydra head and will advance to the next round of their competition. The guys were shocked and didn't know how he won so quickly. Sal realized that this monster was much stronger than the dragon that had attacked him in the dungeon. Thankfully, it was under suppression magic. Otherwise, they would have been in trouble. Gloria also came forward and attacking the monster from behind said, she didn't expect the attack. Then let him turn around. Gloria said that she would not allow these northern barbarians to underestimate the warriors of their empire. Sal saw this and immediately realized that a member of the Isaac family. It was not for nothing that they had become the emperor's right hand in his past life. William also ran forward and shouted that this was the Imperial Academy's territory. Let's go. We have to show them. The judge shouted that at the moment Hydra was furious. Let him defend himself. And suddenly Hydra pounced on Adelia. Sal, seeing this, simply attacked the Hydra from far away, so it wouldn't hurt Adelia. Adelia was shocked and said how strong he was. Knocked the monster down with a single sword strike. Sal was sure that the Hydra had been suppressed to the bottom, and it seems the Academy doesn't want to lose at the selection stage. William ran up and told Sal that he got 1-2. Sal got excited and thought that all it would take was one more head and their whole troop could make it to the next stage. Sal looked at the others and said that it was rare to see such a weakened Hydra. Besides the head, he should bring something else with him. Sal headed over to Hydra and told Adelia, Gloria, and William to get out to the next stage. He wants some practice with that thing. Sal realized that even though he couldn't use blood magic, he was still strong enough to deal with her with his sword alone. As for her magical fire attack, I think he'll use it. Finish the beast. Taking control of the Hydra's head, he immediately released his fire attack and aimed directly at the other head. Sal realized that now that her regeneration had been weakened by her own strongest attack, it was necessary to act immediately. Left with only one single head, she will spend all of her energies rebuilding the severed body parts. Sal jumped on the Hydra and easily chopped off its head. He realized that at this point, the Hydra would be the weakest. Now, if he gets into resonance with the blood magic Chris taught him and gives the Hydra one last blow, he can get its gift of regeneration. But suddenly during his attack, Alan appeared and cut off Hydra's head, saying that Sal is still as stupid as before. Trying to chop off her last head caused a real massacre and missed his chance to get into the tournament. And why doesn't he fall to his knees and beg him? Maybe then he'll reward him with a pass. Sal asked, kneeling in front of him and begging for alms. He has no conscience at all. And if he doesn't care about getting into the tournament, then maybe they all don't mean anything to him either. Sal cut the thread and, seeing that he had grabbed his friends, got angry and turned to him. Sal was just standing still, waiting for his moment, when he suddenly told Alan that he was about to die. The prince saw and said that they took the limiter off the Hydra. The Cooper bastard is really in such a hurry to die, and if there were a couple or three more of these monsters in the arena, it would be more entertaining. Alan said that today he would avenge him for all the humiliation he had brought him as a child, and at the same time, he would wash away that shame with his blood. Alan turned to Lisa and told her to act. He said he had brought the Sand family's most canine dog with him. Sal knew that Lisa was using dark bond magic that weakened and sucked the life out of her target. Fighting her directly was a waste of energy. But because of Alan, he didn't manage to cut off the last head of the Hydra in time, causing it to fully regain its strength. But Sal didn't think long, and coming up from the side, he thrust his sword straight at the Hydra's head. He decided that in that case, he would let them enjoy the full power of the freed Hydra as well. Alan told Bastard he was an idiot, and did he really think destroying Lisa's hair would hurt her? The Hydra became much stronger, and suddenly unleashed its hounds into the fray. Sal saw that it was quite interesting that she was able to absorb and transform the Hydra's flames. However, using Hydra's power so brazenly would only make her angry. She would definitely not leave the offender alone after such a provocation. But the Hydra had only just been released, not much time left before its power erupted. We have to get rid of Alan as soon as possible. Hydra shouted to Alan to be more careful, but Sal didn't stay away after that and immediately destroyed several of them. Sal got very close to Alan and asked how these half-dead dogs were supposed to stop him from killing Alan, but Alan applied damage redirection. Sal saw that it was another saving trick. How hard it was for him to finish Alan off. William saw Hydra fall to the ground and asked if Sal needed help. Suddenly something started happening to Hydra, and she started screaming. Sal replied to the guy that he didn't need to. He'd better hurry up and get her out of here and take her with him. William grabbed the Hydra, but it started biting the guy's hands. William was screaming that it was hurting him. The referee started to say that third place goes to Gloria Isaac, and he congratulates her on making it to the next stage. William put Hydra down and told her to stop biting. And didn't she realize that Sal didn't want to kill her? The referee says that sixth place goes to William, and he congratulates him on making it to the next stage. William said that if Hydra stayed here, it would only delay Alan's revenge. Is a freak like that worth risking your life for? Suddenly her mind opened completely, and she saw William just looking at her with his beautiful eyes. William said that when they grew older and stronger, they would be able to defend themselves. They personally passed the test and earned their place in the tournament, and he hopes that in the next stage, they will be able to fight each other fairly. The judge also said that seventh place goes to Lisa Sanaa, and he congratulates her on making it to the next stage. Alan saw her run away and shouted that she was a creature, and how dare that backstabber betray him. Sal replied that now no one else could protect him, and is he ready for his death? Alan cut off Hydra's head and asked, does he want to kill him? Too bad. He won't be able to do it today. He will be the last fighter to advance to the next stage of the competition, and he will become food for Hydra. Sal just waved his hand and chopped off a few Hydra heads and asked Alan if he was sure. But Sal realized that he really didn't kill the Hydra so quickly, but thanks to him, it was possible to exhaust the monster well. And now that she had reached the peak of her weakness, he would be able to complete the ritual. And Master Chris told him about a blood magic ritual described in ancient folios. But that by mixing the blood of the monster together with the life stream of the owner, a common bond is formed between them. Suddenly, the system came out and said that the S-Class fast regeneration ability had been obtained. It allows them to regenerate physical damage at lightning speed while avoiding any negative effects of that attack. Sal said that at this moment, a person could synchronize blood streams and not only subdue the monster's will, but also take possession of its special abilities. Alan saw the blood on his hands and was a little shocked. His arm had completely turned to bone and fell off. Alan screamed, "How dare he cut off his arm again?" Sal replied that he was sorry he didn't have the ability to recover it this time. And then the A-Class ability Erosion was obtained again. It allows them to instantly absorb a portion of the chosen target's life force. Sal said that as someone to whom the shadows took their oath, he never wondered what it would be like to be such a shadow himself. Alan understood everything and replied that that was the point. No wonder he had managed to live his miserable life for so long. Did he think that this kind of revenge would work? All the pain he had caused him would be transferred to countless innocent shadows. Sal told Alan that he didn't quite understand how the oath worked. All the damage he takes from his master can't be transferred to other shadows that are already under his command. And unlike him, after all, Alan is experiencing the full extent of their pain. Alan told Bastard that he doesn't. He's just crazy. He's out his mind. And he's now asking Sal to let him go. But Sal just didn't feel sorry for him and immediately swung his sword several times. Alan said he could just kill him and just let him finish him off already. Sal replied that he's not going to let him just get away with that. He wants Alan to continue to live in agony and fear, and not even knowing when his body would be pierced by that pain again. After all, he had once lived like this. Sal came out with the Hydra head, and the judge said he was in 8th place. At this time, one of the participants was saying, "What a huge head," and apparently it's never been cut off before. This guy is really strong, and he's the first in the Delanco family to be promoted. In addition to his absolute defense skills, he is also rumored to possess a secret technique for controlling dragons. Sal saw him as the guy looked down at him and said he was looking forward to fighting him. But the referee says tomorrow will be the first round of their tournament. Saladin Delanco and Sal Cooper will face off in the first match. Sal realized that he would be placed against such a strong opponent as Saladin Delano in his first fight. The second prince clearly wanted him dead, and now was the perfect time to fight him. After all, if he wanted to win the tournament, it was best to deal with the strongest of the strongest as early as possible. Saladin just lunged at him with an attack and shouted that he hoped he would like the taste of his axe. Sal saw that this guy had power and speed, and such an attack would be hard to block. Saladin just couldn't stop and kept attacking with his axe the whole time. Saladin got angry and asked, "How dare he dodge? Let him start fighting already." Sal used his ability and stood on his axes and asked, "Is he the coward here?" House Delanco has been known as the Wars of the Sea since ancient times. It turns out that real men are supposed to hide from enemies at a distance and shoot them with guns, right? Saladin just lost his temper and, attacking with his attack, shouted for him to repeat what he just said. Sal stopped his punch and replied that he had so much strength for such a short guy. Saladin waved his hand after the attack and called the guy a trickster, and asked if he wanted to piss him off and catch him at the right moment. But it won't work. Saladin decided to show his cards to the fullest, and pulled out his axes and simply changed his aura. Sal definitely here didn't expect Saladin's defense to be so impenetrable. Even the Hydra's erosion combined with the bloody spikes did not damage him. Saladin attacked the guy and asked him what was he getting so worked up about. Now he's going to pay for what he said. Sal wasn't scared, and pissing him off even more responded to the toddler attacking. At the last moment, Sal applied blood magic to the common bond and ordered Saladin to freeze. Saladin didn't understand what had happened and asked what he had done. Sal replied that all means are good in war. When he goes on a rampage, you have to keep your wits about you. Otherwise, a slime man like him will be able to catch him in a blood bond. Sal waved his sword and chased the boy away from here. Saladin just couldn't even resist and flew away like a piece of fluff. And after all this, Saladin summoned Thor. It was a flying demon, an A-class monster of elite dragons. It could use the magical elements of ice and lightning. Sal knew it was a flying monster with a cold-blooded temperament that relied on agility instead of strength. Not much of a match for the fierce Saladin. Saladin sat on his Thor and said Kid even got him to summon Thor. But it's just too bad that's where it ends for him. Chris said that according to the rules of the arena, summoned creatures can't participate in the tournament. That's not fair to Sal. The judge replied that rules are rules. However, Saladin is an exception, as he is a dragon rider. If he disagrees with that, then so be it. Sal is allowed to use creature summoning as well. Saladin gave orders to his dragon and told the guy that he would now see how he would dodge it. Sal realized that if he continued to waste his strength on repelling such attacks, it would not end well for him. We got to close the distance with him. Saladin shouted that the boy was just lucky. Today he would show him the most powerful attack of a dragon rider. The prince, seeing this, said that Saladin was indeed the most talented of the Delanco family warriors. The old man replied to the prince that he was very grateful for the compliment, and his son is the pride of his family. And being the only child of the Delanco family to be able to make a pact with a dragon for the first time in centuries, he is able to communicate with a flying demon to harness the power of the heavens themselves and unleash the full force of thunder upon his enemies together. Saladin said he would lead House Delanco and the dragons to a great future. It is a great honor for him to die by the fury of the storm itself. But upon opening his eyes, Sal applied his dragon defense and told the kid he was getting excited early. Everyone was very shocked to see a demonic dragon in front of them, and they asked, "Aren't they extinct?" Sal realized that only absorbing catastrophic level attacks could help the demonic dragon develop its abilities. Alan had also gotten him in his past life, but he had never been able to unleash his full potential. Sal knew that today, the dragon had obtained the magic of lightning, and in the future, his power would become immeasurable. Sal told the guy to show him his new abilities already. Immediately, he attacked with his demonic dragon. Saladin was shocked and replied that it just couldn't be that. Sal told Saladin that he had to win this fight and used a huge lightning attack. Dragon immediately said that the judge could now announce it. Sal now realized that this was what it was like to shine in a blaze of glory, an award that no shadow had ever been honored with. Suddenly, Father Saladin came down and said that Sal was just a pathetic thief who had stolen the Delanco family's power and treasure, and he has to give it back, along with his demon dragon. Dad just didn't get nervous and threw his axe at him, asking for the dragon back. But the dragon saw this and easily repelled the attack. Sal asked afterward, "Is it really his dragon?" Descending with his dragon to him, Sal said he was a shameless old man, and today he would show him the simple truth of this world. Previously, in the world of swords and magic, dragon riders flying high in the sky are the most dangerous and powerful opponents. For the sake of the balance of power among the noble families, the old king destroyed all the demonic dragons, and the last clutch of eggs remained locked inside the Crystal Lord, and the key to it was shared between the Cooper and Isaac families. The old man said that demonic dragons aren't extinct. That's excellent. It's just a pity that he recognized him as his master. You filthy rogue. He realized that dragons were the most loyal creatures in the world, and if he chose his master, he would never betray him again. If the rider died, or if he tried to separate them by force, he would only drive the dragon to suicide. The old man asked the guy, where did he get that dragon? He has brothers or sisters, right? And if their Delanco family can get their hands on a real demonic dragon, they will definitely become the strongest of the 7 great houses of the empire. Sal replied that it was the last demonic dragon in the entire world. They had been ordered to destroy the rest of the eggs. The old man asked who had given such an order to him. Sal replied that he is the one who least wants to see the Delanco family at the top of the food chain. Sometimes absolute loyalty keeps him safe forever. The old man asked with surprise, the second prince? Why would he do that? After all, it was much easier to control a dragon when you broke off its wings and fangs. Sal approached William and said that his next opponent was the heiress of the Forest family forest. They mainly used traps to effectively hunt their prey, and so he'd better shorten the distance as quickly as possible and use his most powerful techniques to deal with her as quickly as possible. Otherwise, he's just going to get pelted with crossbow bolts. William immediately applied the Imperial swordsmanship jerk and shouted to Luna to get this technique. But Luna used reflection and attacked back. But William didn't even expect Luna to be able to put up a defense so quickly. Despite his immense strength, William's attacks were easy to predict. And now it would be best to break free of the entangling vine while Luna was attacking with the crossbow. Then, taking advantage of the moment after the attack, tried to approach her again. But William just didn't stay back and used Imperial swordsmanship blast chi, and he decided to take the blow, causing the resulting blast wave to tear apart the Magic Lianas. William simply applied his imperial swordsmanship to the flight of the swallow. And then came the dash, and a stabbing blow. But William realized that this was all taking a huge toll on his stamina. Luna didn't stay away either and let loose an attack from the crossbow. William repelled her immediately with an imperial swordsmanship parry. Luna realized that if he didn't finish this right here and now, his life would be in great danger. William decided to end it once and for all, and attacked with one of his strongest attacks. Saul had been watching the fight the whole time and said he had failed. William looked up and asked where she had gone. Luna attacked him from behind and replied that only swordsmanship and nothing more. William was shocked and said why he couldn't move. Luna didn't waste any time and attacked him. But suddenly Sal saw that there was clearly something wrong with William. It was because he had spent a lot of energy during the last battle. Or maybe it's the effects of the hallucinogenic plants. It looks like Luna imprisoned their seeds inside the entangling vine at the beginning of the battle. And it was worth William's while to sever the vines that encircled him, as the spores of these fungi began to spread in the air around him. In the time of his attack, given the resulting explosion, he had time to inhale them and fall under their influence. Sal thought and realized that this was her trump card. He would surely avenge William in battle with her. The referee says that William leaves the arena and Luna Forest is the winner of this round. Sal was angry to see William fly off to the side and asked the girl what she wanted to do to him. The girl replied that she wanted to save William and caught him with her vines. Sal wondered and didn't know when they had time to become such friends. She caught him even faster. It was strange. She just saved his life, but she kept her distance. Adelia came up to him and told him that this Lady Luna was too cruel to William. He still has the spores of those hallucinogenic mushrooms in his body. Can't get the effects of them off him. Sal suddenly said he had an idea and asked the girl if she could lightly hit William with black magic. He needs to wake up as soon as possible. The girl made his request, and Sal said he was awake, and told William to remember to thank Lisa for that. William looked at her and thanked her for saving him. Lisa just blushed in a moment and ran away. But William said she just saw him and immediately ran away. Adelia said that Lisa's magic collided with her own inside William's body. It allowed her to see part of her own memories. And she couldn't protect Alan, and she saved William's life. And that bastard's mother is going to punish her for it. Sal told her not to worry. Lisa is a competitor in the tournament, and Madam Cooper is not so fucked up that she would punish her right during the competition. At this time, Hera was beating her up and telling her that she was a useless trinket, unable to even protect her master, and she still wanted to prove herself in the arena. And what made her think she was worthy of it? Hera didn't even pity her and beat her with a wire, leaving cuts on her body. There was a man famous for his black sorcery. The Sanaa clan gathered orphan street boys from all over the world each year to bring them to his family's dark temple. Insan's black magic feeds on the deepest human suffering and despair. But by systematically destroying their psychological resilience, the clan burns the humanity out of them to a thou. Only the few who miraculously survive this agony are honored to bear the brand of sand, turning into ruthless instruments of death. Hera asked her, had she forgotten what she had been taught? Her body, soul, and every drop of blood belonged to her master. And since she was unable to protect her lord, let that hand become unnecessary to her. Lisa was tired of being wounded and asked her lord for forgiveness. And she was unworthy and failed to protect young Mr. Allen. But then all of a sudden, someone suddenly told her to stop bullying her and threw his sword at her. Adelia said that this was an imperial academy, not her torture chamber. Hera was happy to see Sal and said that it was bad luck that he was here, and even better that she was going to wring his neck herself. And he would be like that dog, shackled by black magic, living a life worse than death, begging humiliatedly at her feet. Clenching her fist, Lisa began to feel herself being strangled. Sal replied that it was funny, and the shadow oath imposed by the Coopers now bound her to Alan. He had become his shadow. Hera got angry and said he was a curse brat, and how dare he speak to the Lord like that. Sal came up and replied that he hoped she would live long. After all, poor Alan would feel all her pains doubly. Hera told him to take his time. Did he really think he could just take this creature away after the betrayal? Hera lifted her head and said that the mistress would forever remain under Sand's control. Not everyone could be an ungrateful snake like him. Lisa also said, let her be punished by her master, and she asked for punishment. Sal got angry and said they were bloodthirsty executioners playing with human lives, and let her realize the consequences. Attacking a nobleman, only their support of the second prince and the right to advance. Adelia immediately attacked and said that she saw Laisha's memories, and to set her free, the warmest moments of her past must be awakened. Sal approached Lisa and asked if she could hear him. And she has a fight. She needs to win, and she'll stay in the academy. And finally a chance to face her and honestly find out who is stronger. Lisa came to her senses and asked with surprise, competition, and tried to remove the lock from her neck. Sal told her that if they managed to get out of this dungeon today, she would be free of her shackles forever. Hera applied even more force and asked her how dare she do this? One could not even think of freedom. She would make her soul suffer torments she dared not even contemplate. Lisa was still trying to free herself and said she couldn't die here. In breaking the chains, she let all her power out. Lisa went outside and said that she had made a promise, and she had no right to lose her life in this place. And she won't give up and can't be killed. William caught her and said she was a dear savior. He was so afraid something terrible was going to happen to her. Sal asked William, how did he end up here? Wasn't the rector supposed to treat him? Hera screamed at that moment that they dare not talk like that. Even if Laisha is freed from black magic, she is still the property of the Sand clan. But then the director walked in and said that Laisha was a participant in the tournament, not the private property of any house. Hera replied that unfortunately, once the rookie tournament was over, the academy would no longer be able to protect her. The principal asked, what if she became his student? Would the Sanaa clan be willing to quarrel with the Cooper family for that? Hera didn't answer anything and stood up to leave. The principal said that William was the one who insisted. Sometimes a teacher has to fulfill the requests of his students. Sal thought, has William managed to influence the rector? And he seems to be quite attached to Laisha. Adelia approached William and said that she trusted him to take care of Laisha. William was surprised and asked why him. After all, it would be so convenient, why not Andrea? Suddenly William heard strange words and shouted for them to be quieter. After all, Lisa was asleep. Sal went up to teacher Oliver and told him that he had done a great job. Thanks to him, they found out about the existence of this secret dungeon and were able to save Laisha. Oliver replied that prior to their arrival, the rector had already announced on Laisha's behalf that they would not participate in the second round. The Sanaa clan officially recognized that Andrea and Molly were automatically passed on. And in the other group, there is a duel between Gloria and the Mysterious Knight. It is the Mysterious Knight who defeated Gloria lightning fast without a scratch, using techniques that even he, an old teacher, could not recognize. And now it's his turn to enter the arena. If he is late, the prince will deny him the right to advance. The referee started to say that he would count to 3 if Sarl didn't enter the arena, consider her surrendered. But Sal wouldn't let him do it and showed up with the dragon and told Moran that he really was in too much of a hurry, and even appealed to Ms. Luna that they could start. Luna replied to then take her hit and fired off a crossbow. But Sal used his dragon attack and applied a roar of thunderous flames and told her he wouldn't let her repeat old tricks. They'll settle this quickly, and apologizes for being rude. Moon replied that this hold is too steep. The referee says Luna falls outside the arena, and the win goes to Sal. And the Thunder Flame Dragon was too terrifyingly strong. By the unanimous decision of the second prince and the academy leadership, the use of contracted magical beasts in the arena tournament is forbidden from now on. Sal realized that the Academy always did him special justice, didn't it? The referee immediately said Andrea's next fight is against the unnamed knight. The guy said, Andrea, this guy on the other side has incredible defense. Even Gloria couldn't leave a scratch on him. Let him not even think of showing mercy or holding back. Sal immediately went to Adele and told her to be careful. And if it gets dangerous, have her surrender right away. He'll take care of the rest. Adele thanked Sal and said she was off. But Sal thought the whole time, who was this guy? He had never heard of him in his previous life. Adele stepped into the fray and shouted for him to take the ice crystal thunder-cracking stone strike. The guy said it was incredible. Adele is already capable of using 3 high-level attack spells at the same time. And what cute names. But the opponent had been standing still the whole time, and dodging said that her attacks had no effect on him. Sal thought immediately, how could the strike just disappear into nothing? If all that elemental magic energy was absorbed. Her opponent said the balance of power would return her an equal response. Sal shouted to Adele and told her to dodge, because this guy was going to throw a powerful punch. His opponent raised his sword into the sky, and a huge whirlwind began. Sal thought, is this really wind magic? Not only does it absorb the energy of the attacks, but it also uses the power of the wind to accumulate power for a counterstrike. And Sal caught Adele and realized another victory in an instant. His power surpasses all the other contestants. The referee immediately says that Adele is out of the arena. The final battle, Sal versus Nameless Knight, who will have the ultimate victory. And the winner will become the new head of the Imperial Academy. Whether he is a commoner or an aristocrat, all students will obey him alone during their years of study. The boys were already asking if their future was going to be run by that ostracized loser Sal from the family. But someone replied that he's not even worthy of the light. Just let the knight finish him off with one blow. He's just a pathetic loser. Sal stood in front of him and said that he was the strongest opponent he had ever faced, but he wouldn't be the one to win today. Sal stepped back and said he would shatter his armor, his mask, and with it the warnings of arrogant fools against those they call losers. The knight replied that dogs like him are always dreaming of turning the heavens upside down. Enough words, it's time to fight. Sal asked while attacking, was it the one that absorbed Adele's attack? It didn't seem to be a skill, but a weapon that accumulates power by devouring magic. The knight asked him, did he manage to make him appear? That's certainly amusing. And now they're going to see if he really is that invulnerable. The knight raised his sword and told him not to waste his strength. He would not be able to break through his absolute defense. Sal replied to his opponent that balance would punish his impertinence, and with a wave of his finger, he released the shells of liquid. Sal asked him, did he really think he was a doomsayer looking down on everyone? And let him watch closely. The blood that boils in his veins will not let his wind curb itself. And what absolute defense is there? If he relies on a dead thing, it's bound to have a blind spot or a weakness. And even if the others couldn't break through his defenses, it meant that their strikes were either not powerful enough or not frequent enough. Sal continued to attack and say that he wanted to see how much more of his blood magic he could absorb. The knight began to laugh and replied that what a mad fighter he was. He is worthy to be his opponent. The knight opened up and said he would fight him fair and square then. Sal replied that this was very funny, and he also said that they, the arrogant aristocrats, shouldn't underestimate the bloody swordsman living in the shadows. The knight tried to attack, but got trapped, and while he was fending off attacks from above, he laid a trap of blood magic beforehand. Sal appeared in front of him and said that he was an arrogant knight, and let him show his true face hidden under that mask. The knight told the guy that he was the first to put a sword to his throat, but the victory is not yet decided, so we shouldn't rejoice too soon. Sal saw his wings and thought, are those angel wings? This guy is not that simple. The system showed angelic wings, shaped like wings fitting to the body, enhancing the strength and speed of the wearer, as well as storing sword wind for a powerful strike. Sal asked, is that what his true strength is? He wouldn't give him a single chance to catch his breath. The knight simply stopped the blow with ease and told the guy that he was an arrogant boy, and it was time to teach him respect. The knight swung his sword and stopped the guy's attack. But Sal had told him to attack. The knight applied the angel light and shouted how great he felt, and just incredible. Chris has seen weapons and techniques like this. This is the guy he once taught. But why is he here? Clashing with him with his swords, the servant approached the prince and whispered something in his ear. The prince said he didn't think he'd dare to come here, and those men they've been secretly preparing will finally come in handy. Today, this nameless knight will die. The knight told his opponent that his swordsmanship was as good as his, and he was getting stronger every moment of the battle. But why? Sal asked him, did he think he only needed the blood magic as a trap to hold him back? The knight said that was it. Then he would just destroy all of his blood energy at once. Sal replied, telling him not to dare underestimate the power of a bloody swordsman. The knight pointed all his swords at the monster and laughed, saying, very cool. Light versus shadow, who will prove to be stronger? Sal took it all in stride and told him that even now he was still clinging to his last hope. The knight replied that it was his time to clutch at straws and use the bloody net against his opponent. The knight said it was treacherous. He dared to use blood energy to bind and abuse him. He tried to get out, but Sal said it was useless. The blood energy is alive, and the more he resists, the harder it squeezes. And now they would see how many more trumps he had up his sleeve. But then the knight withdrew his next trump card, the necromancer's hand. But Sal responded by attacking the withering of death, and told him that he had forced him to draw his weapon. The knight said that if judged by pure strength, he was superior in this battle. Sal realized that no, something wasn't right here. He was clearly trying to show him favor, but why did he feel even more threatened? But suddenly a mercenary suddenly appeared from somewhere and attacked Sal. But he was warned and shouted to dodge. Sal also dodged the attack and realized that such a massive conspiracy in the Imperial Academy, the one behind it and the person in front of him, were both not simple individuals. And then Sal did so and pulled the mask off the knight's face and immediately recognized him. Leonard Richard. And in his past life, he had heard that the eldest prince was beloved by the warriors. He had always walked ahead, suppressing the rebels, but alas, he had died too soon. And now he realizes, most likely, he was ruined by endless assassination attempts by aristocrats. Morano started yelling that it was an assassination attempt, and let the assassins be captured. Everyone protect the second prince first. Leonard lifted the necromancer's hand and said, there's those pesky hyenas again. If they smelled prey, they'd be dead set on it. He didn't waste much time and applied angel wings in the form of a guardian, and said that they wretches who dared to plot an assassination attempt on the royal family would accept death. But Sal also took part with his dragon and realized that if he could stop this assassination attempt and befriend the eldest prince, he would no longer have to fear harassment from the second prince. And after his rebirth, he didn't have a chance to make a real massacre. Today he will show them what the god of death from his past life can do. Sal looked at them with an evil look and asked, what is the way of the Azura? Is rivers of blood? The two guys stood at the same time against the mercenaries and shouted to their subordinates to kill them once. Leonard said, how dare a pathetic firefly defy the glow of the full moon? And he used his eternal stars against them. And Sal shouted for them to feel the fury of a thunderous, flaming dragon. And these pathetic attempts at murder are the work of a rabble unworthy even of contempt. Leonard said they would pay with their lives for this vile rebellion, and attacked them with the sickle of the blood moon. But suddenly he felt an arrow flying behind him, but Sal immediately stopped it and told the lad to beware of the danger that lurked behind. Leonard replied that he was grateful for his advice, but it was time to end this once and for all, and clenched his fist and simply burned all the mercenaries alive. But here was a guy holding a compass and thinking that for Leonard, this day would be his last. And it turned out to be the alchemist and was reading the sacrifice technique. But it was more complicated than they'd anticipated. and everything around them began to move. Leonard immediately applied angel wings in the form of shackles. Sal said a potion that weakened the angel wings, but it seems the puppeteer in the shadows knows all about it. Leonard grabbed his eyes and felt his strength leaving him. Sal had said that if he hadn't shown up here today, the Elder Prince might have repeated his fate from a past life of death by the assassin's blade. He used super-fast regeneration, but then he used the thunder flame of karma. But suddenly, a huge monster sandworm appeared in front of him. Sal applied protection and told Leonard to be careful. He saw that the sandworm shell was invulnerable to magic, and the Elder Prince was poisoned and weak, and they mustn't let him get one step closer. Sal ordered the dragon to attack them with thunderous flames, and clashed with the worm and attacked with the dragon stomp. Sal said that the sandworm shell is impervious to magical strikes. They need to pierce its defenses and pour magic right into its gut. Sal saw that the dragon was fighting him one-on-one and excitedly said it was perfect. The prince was angry and asked Sal if he dared to openly raise his hand against royal blood. After all, the worm had fallen right in front of his feet. Leonard said no. Sal had saved his life. But his sweet little brother, being the head of this tournament, how did he let a horde of assassins descend upon them? The prince replied that it was exactly like that. This assassination attempt was deadly. Even he, under tight security, barely escaped. And Leonard could be calm. He would get to the truth and would not let the shadow puppeteers live. Leonard sat on the throne and said that they had survived the day only because of Sal. Imperial law states that a savior of royal blood is allowed immediate elevation to nobility. And he grants Sal the title of Viscount and will head him the duty of assisting the second prince in uncovering those who have woven this web of conspiracy. Sal saw that the bond between the sandworm and Sandrew, a master of alchemy, couldn't help but be alarmed. Sal said that he is grateful to the eldest prince for this honor. Also, as the winner of a novice competition, he expects the second prince to fulfill his vows. The prince asked him what he wanted, and what could he give him? He realized he wanted to lure the winner with this reward to make him his dog, but Leonard intercepted Sal first. Sal replied that he was claiming the silver misty tops of the Cooper family as lands of his viscountcy. The servant just suddenly told Sal that he was a greedy and dishonest jackal. But Leonard replied that he believed Sal was worthy of the reward. Would the second prince dare to renege on his promises? And the matter with these estates is not a simple one. If the silver mist cannot be given to Sal, he offers to give him the Ink Ridge on the outskirts of the capital. The prince replied that everyone knows that there are deposits of black gold in those lands, and he won this promise from the king with great difficulty. And controlling these veins of black gold is controlling half of the empire's magical wealth. There's no way he'd give it up to an outsider. It was said that black gold is a substance with incredible magical compatibility, an indispensable component for creating high-end magical artifacts, and therefore its value knows no bounds. And black gold is graphite. Black gold jewelry is as fragile as glass and cannot be repaired. Leonard turned to his younger brother and asked, had he decided? Would he give Sal the silver mists or the ridge of the inky abyss? The second prince said that on behalf of the head of the Cooper family, he was handing over the silver misty tops to Sal.